And we are back. And we are back. I don't know if it caught that, so I'm going to say it again. I was just streaming some video games. I'm going to keep doing that while we're doing this. If you're watching this not live, look below. There'll be a little marker when I stop the actual video, start the actual video. For some reason, StreamYard created it twice, so I have to see which is the real one, delete the other one. I was going to like get everything set up beforehand, but I couldn't. So if you're not watching this live, look below and you will see it. And I'm going to make a post to the chapters is what I'm referring to. Yeah, so Donald Trump is going live. Is Donald Trump appears on the Joe Rogan Experience. Welcome back, Blue. Again, not live. Look at the marker below and it'll tell you when we start. Live react. Live reaction. Trump on JRE. Is that better? Yeah, whatever. I guess it doesn't matter. I don't know. What's up, everybody? We're going to give it a few minutes, but we are going to do this live. I'm live. They're not live. I'm very excited to see what he has to say. I do wish that Kamala Harris did this as well. Their excuse was scheduling conflicts. I do not believe them. Personally, it's up to you what you think, but I think that number one, there were things that they wanted Joe Rogan to agree not to talk about. That's pretty standard in the news. And I don't know. I think that Joe Rogan would be willing to do some of them, but they probably didn't agree on all of them. That's complete speculation. That's just what I think. That's my perception of it. So that could be totally not true. But in this situation, if they thought that Joe Rogan could benefit them, which I think they know would not, because I've never seen a Kamala Harris interview go that long. So it's not her element. Donald Trump, on the other hand, that is his element. And I think they probably realize, and again, speculation, that this is not her wheelhouse, that it does not make sense for her to do that. Why is it so dark? Key light, turn it on. There we go. And we're bright and we're back. Okay. I am going to keep playing EU4 while this happens. I don't have that on the screen. I wouldn't, except I can't share it anyway. I can't share the screen. So, I'll have something on the screen. Give you a little Subway Surfers. Yeah, Trump does have gravity in his presence. Whereas, what's her name? Kamala Harris gives off more of a wine mom presence. And I don't know. A lot of people say she's drunk. She does have, I'm not a doctor. I'm not her doctor. So you can speculate on whatever, but it definitely sounds like she pretty consistently is doing some slurs. Everybody seems to talk about alcohol. I think it's more likely, if there is something going on with her, it could also just be like, a medical thing with her, which she doesn't want to be public about, and that would be fine. But I think it's more likely, and again, speculating, that it's something, it's drunk, but like it would only be a slight drunk. It's still bad, but I don't think it's that. I think it's more likely to be some sort of prescription drug that would be causing that. I mean, they both would cause that, like something like a benzodiazepine or something like that, as opposed to alcohol. But maybe it's both. Maybe it's a combination. But I would be, and it's not like I'm singling out Kamala here. It's like I'm pretty sure most of these people are on these types of drugs. Most of our ruling class is popping pills. But again, speculation. All right, I just got to finish setting this up. We'll let people come in. I'll make a post on the Twitters. Let's go, boys. Donald Trump. Donald Trump appears on Joe Rogan. Long-awaited appearance of 2016 to 2020 president and current 2024. See how I'm putting in the keywords on here? I know what I'm doing. And current 2024 presidential candidate appears on the Joe Rogan Experience, keyword JRE in parentheses. Okay, there we go. It is less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day against current Vice President Kamala Harris. That's good. Playlist. Live. Done. Tags. Donald Trump. Trump JRE. Joe Rogan Experience, JRE. Do I have the YouTube link? Yeah, I got the link though. Thank you. What's up, Autumnplier? So everyone, if you're just joining me, give me a few minutes. I gotta I usually let people filter in for about 10. Then I'm gonna make a marker when we actually start talking about the good stuff. When we start listening, cannot watch it, but we can listen. If you watch it, they do an automatic takedown, even though what I would be doing is free use, but that's okay. That's what happens. So JRE, I got to make sure I'm not yelling. So I'm going to take that out a little bit because it is late and I am in a duplex in Pennsylvania, although I'm on the other side of the wall of the neighbors, but I want to be respectful and the sound carries in this old ass place. Okay. I got to take these off. I can't see crap. All right. I love those sunglasses though. Shout out WBS Apparel. They're not an official sponsor, but they are friends. Trump, Joe Rogan. I didn't do that one yet. 2024 election, presidential election. Political news, Donald Trump news, boost the video, Donald Trump. Let's see, Kamala Harris news, U.S. election, Harris. That should do it. Links are, oh yeah, it's not that links aren't allowed in my chat. It's that links aren't allowed on YouTube. So I don't see your link, but I do have the link. It's unlisted right now for some reason, but it did appear. This is a 3-hour episode. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do is drop it in. Okay, that's where that is. Why do I have 2 StreamYards? No, I'm live. The other one's BS. It's a lie. 3 hours long. Yeah, we're gonna be doing this all night, boys and girls. We'll start getting the Australians a little bit later once they start waking up. I streamed through the middle of the night a little bit recently, and that was fun. Got a whole different crowd because everyone was asleep. Alrighty then. Let's go. Link is up. Okay. And it looks like we can start. I just got to get to the spot that I'm going to mark. And I am going to get back to the EU4. I'll just have it on, but I'm not going to be paying as much attention to it for obvious reasons. Okay, where are we at here? That is too bright in the middle of the night. That's not the right button. No, yeah, it is. Okay. There we go. All right. Patreon is down below if you want to give me $2 a month for my autistic BS. And that's the intro. We're going to get 9 minutes on episode start. We're going to save that and we're going to play it. No, I'm going to have to change that again because I did not have it ready to play. Share the screen. Entire screen is right. Also share system audio. I guess we're just going to do this. We're just going to do it like that. I tried to make it smaller, but I couldn't. That's okay. And it should be sharing. Let me know when it starts how my voice is versus the episode. I am like, we're watching it together. I'm gonna, it shouldn't be annoying if I talk over certain parts. I want to avoid pausing a little bit, but also like them's the rules. Gotta do for fair use. You got to add to it, and I think it's fair to say that I am adding to it. I will. I'm sure I'll have a lot to say on this one. So let's see. I'm digressing. Okay. Let's see. Starting the episode right now. Let's go.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Classic. How's the audio level?
We're rolling. Good to see
Let's
you, sir.
go.
Here we go.
And I'm going to be doing this while
one of the
playing
things I
EU4,
wanted to
but it'll
talk
be
to you
playing
about-
there.
I wanted to play this, but we decided we shouldn't play it because it could get copyright strike, and we don't want to. Get
Maybe,
the
Manoa.
episode. We don't want anybody to have any sort of way to get it down.
Sure.
But it was the episode of you when you were on The View, and I think it was 2015 or 2006, like when you were running for president.
Right.
And you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
Louder? Okay.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss.
Rogan's
Joy
low.
Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all loved you. They were all talking about how you're, you might be.
Is it still low?
You might be conservative in your financial positions, but
How
you're
about
very
now? Is
liberal
it too loud?
socially. They were talking about you in such a favorable
Yeah.
light. The audience was cheering. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
But there's probably
It's a good
no
point. It's all
one
about the
in
perception of
history
what they want
that
to push
I've ever
out.
seen that's been attacked the way you've been attacked, and the way they've
Okay,
done
so
it
I'm getting
so
perfect and I'm getting good and
and systematically.
too
When you
loud.
see those same people
does
very favorable to you, like Oprah, when you were on Oprah's show,
how about
she's
that?
encouraging you to be
Last week I
president.
did one of her last shows.
Okay.
I think maybe Thursday or Friday. That was a big deal being on Oprah's show, the last one. And
I
was
don't know
like
why
one of
my
the last
system sounds
shows
are playing.
in that final week. And I said, "Boy, we've come a long way since that."
What was it like?
JRE audio too low.
Well, the concept. It was
Okay,
really
what
like
about
two
now?
different lives. Yeah.
And is it lower when I
A very
change it like
wonderful
that?
life, But I wanted to do this. The Apprentice was still going very strong. We had 12 seasons, and we had actually 14 seasons, 12 years over. They had a couple
Well,
of
they
them.
canceled The Apprentice when you were running for president, correct?
No, they had Arnold Schwarzenegger do it. I was involved in that, and I had enough of it, and we did great. It was doing great, but they wanted me to stay. They all came to see me. They said,
Canceled
"We're
The
going to give you a
Apprentice when
contract."
were
They
running
wanted to
for
extend my
president, correct?
contract. Mark Burnett is a great guy. Then
Sounds-
they wanted to extend the contract. Mark said, "You're crazy. Don't run. Don't run." No. Nobody gives up prime time, they said. It's one of those little things, which is probably true.
Is it
Nobody
too
gives
loud
them
now,
the
or are
No,
we
for
good?
being president?
For running against 20
president?
some odd people. For running against 20,
right,
turned
that
out to
sounds
be
good.
18.
I'm sorry, I
18
had to double it
professional
for a
people,
second. but-
mostly politicians. They said, who would do this? I mean, it's a long shot. Actually, the
cool.
heads of NBC came over, the Paul Telegny, all the top people came over to see me try and talk.
And what you can do is you can line up the sound with the video here if you want to. I'm going to avoid pausing for that, but I have to pause a little bit, especially if I have something to say, which is the point of me doing it here. But people don't remember how crazy it was that Donald Trump was possibly going to be the president back then. I mean, people thought that it just wasn't possible. It just wasn't a thing. It didn't happen. Now it's shifted where it's like, yeah, people get it that it's a possible thing, but let's go 3 minutes in.
Me out of it because they wanted to have me extend. The Apprentice was doing well.
Also, like
so
the video,
it was
please.
14 seasons. It was 12 years. We had 2 seasons where we had a double, which rarely happens. It was just a hot show. And I said, I want to do this. What happened is previously, like 3 years, 4 years before that, they did a poll. They had Mitt Romney, and somehow they put me in a poll. And I blew everybody away. I blew him away, which isn't that hard, frankly. But I blew everybody away. And I said, that's interesting, because I never really gave it that much real thought. I thought about it, but never real thought. But I saw these polls were very good.
It's you can't
And so
find it
I
on
was
YouTube.
thinking
It's
about doing
unlisted. You have to
then, but I
find
had
it
a
through
contract
Twitter.
with The Apprentice. Plus, I was building 2 big
Oops.
buildings at the time, and I wanted to make sure they got finished up properly. And it was one of those things. The kids were just sort of getting involved. They're very capable kids, but they were getting involved early on. So I did that. I got them done. I had some very good successes. And I came on.
Did I just make
and,
it
then
quieter?
I thought about it for the next
Or
one
is it the same
after
volume?
The Romney disaster. And I ran and I won against Hillary. It was quite an experience, but it was a different life because you're right, The View. I was on The View many, many times, and they loved me.
Just the way people would talk. I mean, even if people had criticisms about you,
cool.
people that didn't like
'Cause
you,
it was
there
too
always
loud for
feuds
me,
and
but it
stuff
was
like
good for
that.
you
But the
guys.
reality was, the thing turned on you when they found out that you were going to be president. It was very coordinated. And some people are catching on to that now. There's a lot of people that were longtime Democrats,
People have been
like
catching on to
Elon
that
and
for, like,
Bill Ackman
10
and
years.
all,
Yeah.
all these different, very intelligent
like 8 or
people.
9.
And they support me now. Bill
And they
Ackman
support you
supports
now.
me. He's
Yes.
been very supportive too.
This is what I wanted to ask you. What was it like when you actually got in? Because nobody really can prepare you for that. When you're running for president, you don't really know what it's going to be like when you actually get into office. What did you think
So
it
do you
was going to
mean
be
in
like?
office or when
Thanks,
I decided
Rebirth.
to
Looking
run?
forward to
See,
No,
talking to
when
you
you got
tomorrow,
in.
brother.
when I
when
was
you
in,
got
so
in.
when I was in and won and was in the White House.
Everybody,
actually-
Rebirth of the World on
first
Twitter.
of all, it was very
Check 'em out.
surreal.
A lot of different
Oh,
stuff
nice.
on
It's
there,
very
man.
interesting. When I got shot,
A lot
it
of
wasn't
cultural
surreal.
stuff.
That should have been surreal. When I was laying on the ground, I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly where I was hit. They were saying you were hit all over the place because there was so much blood from the ear. You would know that better than anyone. When they get the ear torn up,
Ears bleed a lot,
they
yeah.
bleed. Anyway, so and I was thinking the other day, when that happened, I really knew.
I know
where
what you meant, Blue.
was. I knew exactly what happened. I said I wasn't hit anywhere else. With the presidency, it was a very surreal experience. Okay,
Like,
And
what's day one like? You
So,
win,
yeah,
you get inaugurated.
so-
Holy shit, I'm the president.
yeah, that's what happened. So I'm driving down
time
Pennsylvania
to be at his
Avenue. I
ends.
just built a building on Pennsylvania. You know, the hotel, the old post office it was. We called it Trump National Hotel. And we sold it to the Waldorf Astoria. And it was a wonderful thing. But I'm driving down, I'm passing the hotel.
I'm sure they'll get
You've
into more
never seen
stuff.
so many motorcycles,
This is like the intro. They're-
police, military.
Trump winds
You know, it
himself
was
up.
a major thing. I got off really the first time I used Air Force
Oh,
One.
yeah.
Landed.
Christos, I can't share the
And
video.
we're
I would if I
coming down,
could.
and
So
they
I'm just
were-
going to leave
it
the
was
game up.
Very I mean, it was incredible.
I'm just not allowed to show
and
the
we're
video.
going down Pennsylvania Avenue in the opposite direction. You know, normally you're used to going one way, and all of a sudden you're going the other way. The street was loaded up, and I wanted
I know it's
to
not
go
ideal,
out,
but
and I wanted to wave to everybody, but that wasn't smart. You know, the kid's a little bit dangerous, right? I mean, when you watch like Kennedy and some
Yeah.
others, right? But I really felt, I don't know, the love was
we're
so
still trying to
crazy,
take
and
over
so
England, and we will.
I did get out of the car for a brief, you know, just for a very short walk. I thought it was very important to do. And Melania got out with her beautiful dress on that became sort of a staple. It was, people loved it. And Barron, and we're walking down the street. But where it really got amazing, we get to the White House, and now it's a little bit before dark, beautiful. And we went up to the president's quarters. They call them the presidential quarters. And I'm standing in this beautiful hallway. You know, it's funny. Nobody ever talks about the White House as being beautiful inside.
I
You
thought
know,
I
you think
remembered
it's
him
gonna be- everything's
saying
gonna be
he
all
didn't
metal
like it
doors
that
and stuff.
much.
It's not.
I don't think I would either. I don't
It's
like old
so
houses.
beautiful.
I like
made
old
my
stuff.
money largely on luxury. The hallway is like 25 feet wide. The ceiling heights are, you know, it's so
I thought he didn't
beautiful.
like it wasn't as
But I was
nice as
standing
his more
there,
modern stuff. I don't
and
know.
I said to the guys, I want to see the Lincoln bedroom.
Did he not
I
say
had
that?
never seen the Lincoln bedroom. I'd heard about the Lincoln bedroom. And I was standing with my wife. I said, do you believe it? This is the Lincoln bedroom. I mean, it was like...
I've never heard of that, bro.
It was. It
Are you
was
serious?
amazing. Because it's, look, if you love the country, but here you are, the Lincoln bedroom.
All
And
right,
the bed,
well.
you know, he was very tall. He was 6'6", which then would be like Barron.
You know, ending slavery is a
Baron
good
Trump.
thing, but he
He's
also
6'9",
was quite an
but
authoritarian.
6'6". He was
separate
very
from that.
tall. Then on top of that, he wore.
There it is.
Not like he
wore
really
that- yeah,
wanted
there
to
it
end
is. It's a long
slavery
bed,
either.
elongated bed, and because very
Libertarians don't
people
like
were
Lincoln that
shorter
much.
than- You see some of the chairs
In
are
general.
very, very low to the ground, actually, but he had the long bed, and
He gets
they
too much
had,
credit
you had the Gettysburg
something he
Address
kinda
right on that,
stumbled
right
into.
under that. You can't see it here, but right there, the original version of the Gettysburg Address.
That's a
And this
topic
is
for
the
another day,
original,
though.
and I'm looking, and I just looked around. I said, do you believe this? Because I was never a first of all, even if you were a politician, but I was never.
Look, he sounds like he's being very legitimate right now, but these are the types of things that I never really thought that Trump would be impressed by. But you know, whatever. Sorry, didn't need to pause for that.
I
But
sort of just started, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm standing in the White House. And it was very, very surreal. That room was so beautiful to me, much more beautiful than it actually is. You know, to me, when I looked at the bed, and the bed you could see was a little bit longer, had to be a little bit longer. He lost his son.
so-
and they suffered. The two of them suffered from melancholia.
Do
They
this
didn't call it depression.
briefly, right?
And they
Ending
called it
slavery was part of the pork.
melancholia,
It
and
like
they suffered from it.
he never
was a
Lincoln
very
never said he
depressed
would end
guy, and
slavery.
she was
He only
a
ended
very
slavery
depressed woman,
initially
more so than him.
in the South, not in
And
the
on top
border
of that,
states
they
that
lost
didn't
their
join.
son.
And he
His
also
name was
wanted to
Ted.
deport all the
Ted.
black people, and they did deport some of them to
was,
Liberia.
Just
and
seeing it,
that's
in the
another
little
whole
picture,
thing.
the little tiny
but-
picture. I mean,
yeah,
you
it
can't
was
see
it
the
was it
details.
was a
little
legitimate
tiny-
war move.
Everything there was a little tiny picture of Tad, who he lost, and it was devastating. And he was, he was. Look, he was in a war. He was, and he was having a hard time because he couldn't beat Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee won like 13 battles in a row, and he was getting like a phobia, like a fighter. You know, a lot about the fight stuff, but like,
He was, yeah. Lincoln
I went to a
was
UFC
authoritarian.
fight, and it was a champion who was 14-1 about a year ago.
He
You would know
really
the name.
changed the
14-1,
country
and the only
based
guy he
on
lost to was this one guy.
it was no longer a voluntary
guy
thing
that he was
explicitly.
fighting
It was
was
now
like
like you're in this.
almost
You
just an
can't
average
leave. You're
fighter.
not
He
allowed
lost
to
numerous
leave.
times, but he beat this one
Regardless
guy.
of what the reason is.
So I said,
obviously,
okay,
I really don't know who you're talking about.
slavery is
I
not
will
a
figure
great
it out.
reason to want to
Okay.
not
But
be in the
about a year
country,
ago-
but
but
it's not
the
like
point is that
there's plenty of
he
other
lost.
bad
He
stuff.
wasn't
Anyway,
nearly the
it's a
fighter,
whole
so-
thing. We'll talk about it
but
someday if people are
the one
interested.
who was not nearly the fighter had beaten. He's the only guy that beat the champ like 5 years before. And I said, I'll take the guy that won the other fight. And that's what happened. He beat him a second time.
Sometimes
Lincoln-
psychological advantages.
Yeah, what is this
Yeah.
crazy thing? Lincoln had I don't know, I've never read this. I heard it from people in the White House who really understand what was going on with the whole life
Cassius
of the
Clay?
White House.
What
But
would I do
Lincoln
a
had,
video about Cassius
the
Clay?
yips about, in a way,
Like,
as the golfers would
I
say.
don't know, what
He
would the
had
angle be?
a phobia about Robert E. Lee. He said, I can't beat Robert because Robert E. Lee won many battles in a row. He was just beating the hell out of him. You know, they tried to get Robert E. Lee to be on the North, but he said, no, I have to be with my state, the state.
Virginia, by the
was
way,
his whole thing, and he went to the
was
South.
most of the states
And
did
he was,
explicitly talk
I've
about
had
the
generals tell
protection
me
of
we had some
slavery,
great
but
generals, the real generals,
Virginia
not the ones
wasn't
you see
really
on
like
television,
that.
The ones that beat ISIS with me. We defeated ISIS in record time. It was supposed to take
Record time.
years, and we did it in a matter of weeks.
like there's a record list
These are
for
great
defeating
generals. These
ISIS.
are tough guys. These are not woke guys. But their
Not woke
favorite
guys.
general
It's true.
in terms of genius was Robert E. Lee. He
terms
took
of
a
strategy,
war,
you mean?
strategically. He took a war that should have been over in a few days, and it was, years of hell, a vicious war. And so here I am standing
That doesn't
there.
sound positive. I
And
understand what he's saying,
again, I'd
but
never really
saying
done
it that
this
way.
Before. I ran a number of months before I won. I probably, I guess if you figured max it out, it would be a year, something like that. So I had never run for office. And I did well. I mean, I went into debates. We had 18 people, including me, and then slowly but surely they started to disappear. We had debates, good debates.
Everyone's aware of all
Good
this
debates,
stuff. What I
the
want to
best
get to is
debates.
what was the experience once you got inside?
It was just
what
a
did you think it was going to be like in terms of your ability to govern?
Yeah.
Like this is your first experience governing anything. You never been a
Yeah. It was
governor.
always
You never been a
private.
mayor.
Yeah,
Right.
private stuff.
Business.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
But
thought
now
you
all
were
of a sudden,
freaking.
Well,
I
the
thought
big-
inside the White
Cassius
House.
Clay
the biggest
was.
thing was just that first moment of
That-
being in this.
I'm
hallowed-
forgetting the name. He
very
went
hallowed
Muhammad
place.
Ali.
To me, it was
Surreal.
It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience.
Yeah.
And then, with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes your place where you stay. And
Right.
I was doing a lot of. I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because
Jeez.
from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. I mean, nobody has ever been treated that way.
Really?
And,
Nobody?
And you see that. I mean, you see where in the
Nobody?
Washington
I get what
Post
he's saying.
very early on,
Nobody?
they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. I mean, it literally started from the beginning. So I had survival and run the nation. I had a combination. Most people don't have the survival. They get in. I think
What did you expect though in terms of once you got inside, you had to appoint all these people.
Yeah.
Like how many appointments did you have to make?
Well,
within
you
a
have
very
actually
short
you have
amount of
actually
time?
10,000 appointments. Now they're different. You have big ones, and then they appoint
Right.
100 people and 200 people. But the president really is involved with approximately 10,000 appointments. So you'll appoint a Secretary of State, and he or she
Right.
will appoint a lot of people. So it's a lot. But in terms of major ones, you
Yo,
probably have
that's
like 100, but
crazy.
they're big ones. Treasury, state, military.
And how did
appointments.
you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no
You didn't.
experience. You have to
Right.
understand, Joe.
So
I
are
was
you
there
going-
17 times in Washington.
Well, he was an
and I
executive.
never
A
stayed
big part
over.
of their
According to
job
the
is
press,
delegation,
which I think is
which is
probably
the same
right.
thing.
Over the years,
Although it's very
I was
different
only
context.
there 17 times. I never stayed over.
I like the video, please.
So now I'm sitting there. I'm saying, this place is gorgeous, but I don't know anybody. It's like you go to certain areas, and other areas they may be great. Washington was great. Washington's not so great right now. We got to fix it. We got to make it better.
true.
A very dangerous place, very badly maintained place. We're going to make it great. We're going to make it better. We're going to bring it back. But I wasn't a Washington guy. I was a New York guy. I was a New York builder, and I built buildings in New York, and I knew that
okay.
whole world, but I didn't know the Washington world too well. And all of a sudden, you're supposed to be appointing top people. So
What did you think it was going to be like? Versus, like, did you have any ideas of what it was going to be like, and what was different?
well, I was always involved in politics, but usually from the standpoint of a donor. I was
Right.
a donor. I was a big donor. I gave
was-
money
I
to
was buying
politicians. I
votes.
enjoyed politics.
Mostly Democrats, right?
Both, really, pretty much both. I actually
Ooh.
pictures of Ronald Reagan and me when I was very
But
young.
you were a Democrat until, like, what year?
I was a Democrat. I could get you the exact, but the early 90s. The early 90s. I switched over eventually. Actually,
I'm gonna
they had a
look that
reform
up.
party. I was thinking about doing that for a little while, but
Oh.
unfortunately I didn't because
What was that
it's
guy's
very hard.
name?
It's a two-party
In
system.
the 90s?
And anytime you hear third party, I know you like RFK Jr. and so do I. He's a fantastic guy.
I do, but I thought
that
that
whole
being
thing
an
is very
independent
tough.
was nonsense.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work because
2001
even if you
he
do great,
changed.
you're not going to get Congress. In
Wait.
other words,
Right.
you need
Okay.
now to say, okay, now I'll get half of Congress. It's never going to
Okay,
vote for
I'm
you.
sorry, guys.
So
I know we
even
got
if you
Trump
got
fans,
there,
but
which is very
that's not
hard,
true.
But
In
and I know how you
2001,
feel
he
about
changed his
Bobby, and I
affiliation
feel
to
the same way,
Democratic.
and he's now with us.
2009,
But
he went
it
back to the
doesn't- it's
Republicans.
real- it's
Trump
pure and
just
simple. It's a
completely
two-party
brushed
system.
past that.
right.
And somebody I won't
Yeah.
mention his name.
Sorry,
but somebody
that's
spent
just- that's the
$250
truth.
million trying to get the
I'll confirm that on a
nomination
second
as
website,
Reform Party
but-
candidate or whatever, and they got just nowhere. You get eaten. You just get eaten. The system eats you alive.
Right.
So, it
Yeah,
was
2000
it was
yeah.
really somebody
Washington
that not only
Times.
was new to Washington, but was new
Unless
to
they're
politics.
printing lies, which they're usually
So,
not that overt.
in the office of the presidency, over the years, all those presidents, you've had
We'll see.
92% were
It's
politicians.
Europa Universalis
and
4.
8% were generals. General Eisenhower, General Washington, right? General George Washington. You had generals. So it's 8% no admirals, 8% generals, and 92% politicians. They're politicians and they go on. So they never had a business guy, or they never had a guy that wasn't elected.
Yeah,
to
I
an
agree,
office.
Pablo.
They were all like Ronald Reagan he was a movie actor, and then but he became the governor of California for I think 2 terms, and then he ran. So you'd never had a thing like this. But in terms of me, and sometimes I'd use it as an excuse, and I don't like having excuses actually, but I'd use it as an excuse. I had to rely
Everybody
on
loves
people
excuses.
that I respected or liked, but that I didn't know that well because I didn't know them that well. Some of those people I campaigned against because, when you have 18 people, we had mostly politicians running in the election, running in the primaries. And they got knocked out one by one, but I got to like some of them. Some of them I didn't like at all, and I don't like them now. And I'd rely on them, and I'd rely on other people. So all of a sudden, people would come in, I'd like to recommend so-and-so to be Secretary of State, and I'd have 3, 4 people recommend. One thing I can tell you, Joe, everybody wants the position.
Of course.
No, but sometimes I'll hear,
I don't.
a lot of people don't want to work with Trump because Trump is tough to work with, et cetera. Let me tell you, everybody
Oh,
wants
I
to
see.
be
The
any
people
one
in
of
that
these
context.
positions. They
Right.
die for
Yes,
it.
Of course.
course
Now, they don't
would.
want to be
That's
known. I mean,
BS.
there's a particular guy in New York, primarily, very big, very successful, very strong, very political, although he's not a politician. he'd give anything to be Secretary of State. But if they ask him, no, I
Yeah, I
don't
think
think
politicians
would
would
do it.
want
But
to
in
be
the meantime,
Secretary of State. It's basically
begging
the number
for it.
2
Okay,
position.
begging.
Vice
They all-
President doesn't have as
everybody,
much
look,
power
everybody
as them.
wants it.
But my
For
point
the
I wanted to
and
get
by the
to
way,
it-
no matter
Americans
what you
here,
do,
Secretary of State is
but it's very dangerous
very,
to pick
very big
somebody
deal.
outside of a politician because a politician's been basically vetted for years.
right.
You pick a business guy,
wild card.
and they've never been vetted at all, and they're the head of a big company or something, but they've never been vetted. You know nothing about his personal life. You know nothing about
Right.
where he's been. When you put him in, it's a little bit dangerous because all of a sudden they get checked up, and you hear things that you're saying, "Wow, this is not going to work out too well." So it's very dangerous. Picking people that are outside of politics is somewhat dangerous.
So
I
you're
think.
kind of stuck in a position where you have to pick established people. And then the problem with established people is established people are already indoctrinated into the system.
And they're stiffs in many cases. They're
Stiffs.
stiffs.
They're
They're
stiffs.
survivors. I find that
I love that.
What do you mean by stiffs? When you say
a
stiffs,
stiff they don't have nothing. They have nothing. Or
I know what he means. I know exactly
they're
what he means.
smart and survivor. One little thing. So there was a congressman years before I ran, and I was very close to him. And I needed a license on something, and he was very important in getting the license. But it was a little bit controversial, the license, this particular thing that was being licensed. But I was close to this guy and helped him and everything else. And I went to him, I said, "I'd like to have your help." And he said, "Let me take a look at it." I said, "Ooh, that's not too good, but I really hope you're going to help." And anyway, he tapped me along for a long period of time and ultimately didn't do it. And I said, "You are a stiff. You could have done this thing so easy, etc." But it was controversial. He was in Congress for many years, like 28 years. And, there's a reason when somebody's there for 28 years, you got to be sort of smart.
Right.
You have
A
all the
survivor.
scandals. And I realized he was a survivor. What
and
he
so they
did-
never do anything controversial.
do-
They never take
Yeah,
any
this is
chances
Yeah,
or
they
speak
don't
their
take
opinion
success
that's
so
outside
far,
of
but
it.
I do think that
Yeah.
Trump kind of does
And yet,
warm
I
up.
don't disrespect him for it.
So-
I actually respected the guy more in a certain way. I said,
Because he did survive.
You know what? He's been there like for 28 years, and he made it through. A lot of people don't make it through.
It's a
They
good
don't
way for
last long.
non-exceptional people to survive.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is.
So you're in there. You have 10,000 appointments you have to make. So you're getting advice from people. And at one point in time, did you have a moment in time where you realized these are bad choices? Like some of these people I shouldn't have had in there.
Oh, yeah. I think so. The one question that you'll ask me, that I think you'll ask me, that people seem to ask, and I always come up with the same answer. If the one mistake, because I had a lot of success, great economy, great everything. Everything was great. We
So
the
great.
military, we
It's huge, the
rebuilt it,
country,
biggest
we were
tax
gonna buy
cuts in history,
Greenland.
all this stuff. We had
We
a
should
great
still do.
presidency. 3 Supreme Court justices. Most people get none. You pick them young. This way they're there for 50 years, right? So,
Right.
even if a president is there for 8 years, oftentimes they never have a chance. I had 3. It was sort of the luck of the draw. But I will say that it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
Neocons,
yeah, neocons or bad people or disloyal people or
people that were just
people that were
bad.
into the
You
people
got
that
bad advice.
Yeah, you're reading about him a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person.
I wanna
know.
hear
You
him
know
talk
more
about
about bullies
Mark
than
Milley,
anybody probably
who
around
was the
because you deal in
president
a certain
or the
sport
general
where the
who
bullies are exposed very quickly.
called
Yeah.
China.
But,
he called a Chinese general.
He's bad.
About Trump,
Bolton was
which is
an
crazy.
idiot,
I
but
mean,
he
it
was
feels
great for
like
me because
treason to me.
I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. You know John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking
Minnow
Bolton.
and
He's a
the-
very smart guy.
For
His name is
Twitter,
Phil
it's
Ruffin.
not
He's a
active
very
viewers.
rich
It's just
guy
people
from
that
Las
popped
Vegas,
in.
one
I
of
don't
the-
know how many
he's
people
a
are
great
actually
card
watching
player.
on Twitter. They
He
got to
doesn't
fix
play
that.
cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? The good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin.
Yeah, he just kept
is a
Fauci in the
very,
position he'd
very
been in for
wise
20
kind
years.
of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people.
What is
So
it exactly?
it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, "He's a bad guy. He's just. It always works out bad with that guy." And I said, "Oh man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks
Fauci
ago. I
wasn't
already
really
hired
in,
him. You know,
in an
he's
important
here."
position until it
And
became
he
the
was
most
right, but
important one.
but he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job, and every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, "Oh man, Trump's going to go to war with us." He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity
I
than
would
other people.
check that,
And
but
I
that would
didn't-
be hard.
It wasn't like I was
even-
trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I
but
could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe. Maybe
You
that's
said a lot of wild shit,
Maybe
and then
that's
CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild shit, made you much more popular.
Yeah.
And they boosted you in the polls because people were tired of someone talking in this bullshit, pre-prepared politician lingo. And even if they didn't agree with you, they at least knew whoever that guy is, that's him. That's really him. When you see certain people talk, certain people in the public eye, you don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are. It's very difficult to know. You see them in conversations. They have these pre-planned answers. They
wonderful
say
girlfriend
everything. It's
has
very
brought me
rehearsed. You never get to the meat of it.
Perfect food.
One of the beautiful
Donald
things about
Trump
you is that
interview.
you freeball. Like you get out and you do these huge events, and you're just
got our
talking, and
McDonald's.
you're making. We've
got our
highlighted you on the
Doy
show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny.
stairs.
It's stand up. It's funny stuff. But it's like you and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, "You'd be in jail." Like that's great timing.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like no one had done that. And I think
You know, it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business.
I hope Donald
This is a
Trump
very
gets
dangerous
fries.
business. First of all, it's a very tough
way better.
business. When
it's the most dangerous
it's the
business.
most well for a job.
Yes.
It's
I mean,
the-
other than
it's the
going to
far.
war and being a firefighter or being a cop,
Yeah.
it's the most dangerous
It's
business.
the most
because-
dangerous. Being president is the most dangerous.
Especially you. I mean,
Oh, much more
you
so.
haven't even got to the election. There's been 2 assassination attempts. And they've brushed those out of the
Thanks,
news like
Kyle.
it was nothing.
Yeah, they'd rather not talk about them.
know, he's
Imagine
probably
if there was
right.
assassination
There's
attempts
been like
on Biden,
50
how hard people
something
would be attacking
President
the right,
54,
how
what is it?
they would be trying to get guns taken away
And there's
from
a few of
people.
them that have
They would
been
try to ramp
assassinated.
up
It's
gun
like-
laws.
it's gotta be
They would
around
try to figure
10%.
out some way to blame you. If there was attacks on, if Biden got shot in the ear,
Maybe
we would have
15.
never heard the end of it.
But I think he's in good shape because it's only consequential presidents. If you take a look at what's happened, look, I'm for having countries pay us billions and billions and trillions even dollars. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. Nobody took in 10 cents, not one other president. I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular. I just do what's
Billions
right.
and billions.
And when you do that, you're
No, that
more,
trade
look
war
at-
did not
Look
work.
at Iran. We would have never had the attack
And I supported
on
it at
Israel
the time.
all. Iran was broke.
I like
told
Trump
China,
now. I
if
didn't
you
like him
buy,
back
you can't
then,
do
but I still
business in the
supported that.
United States under any circumstance. We're going to go cold turkey with China. Some people think that would have been a good idea anyway. But
No, that would not
if
have been
you
a good
buy
idea.
any
That's
oil,
insane.
1 barrel of oil from them, you're not doing business. I said
That's
that to many
insane.
countries. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money. But I make myself, I understand what I'm doing. You make yourself a target, and it's a very dangerous business. But if you just look at statistically, so I saw a thing, I don't know if it's right, but 0.1% for a race car driver. Yeah, it's pretty dangerous business, right?
Yeah.
0.1% for a bull rider. I tell you, to me,
You're talking death?
These guys that ride the bulls is worse than UFC. It's worse.
Yeah.
These guys, you see these big monster bulls, and you see it in slow motion where the foot is like, an inch away from the head. If it hits him, the guy's gone. But they die. They die.
So 1/10 of 1% die. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 0.1% die.
Right.
And they certainly get hurt badly. Or really, they can't walk after a certain period of time. But with a president, if you look at
The amount of assassination attempts.
and
Yeah.
attempts too,
Yeah.
and attempts. No, it's a very dangerous position. I never
See what
thought
I'm
of that,
saying.
by the way, when I did it.
How many
you
presidents have been
don't
assassinated?
tend to think.
Did you just assume because
don't
people
think
loved you
it's-
on The Apprentice, they were going to love you as a
Well, I
president?
figured it would be so easy. It's
Well,
very
it probably
interesting.
would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E. Lee. Oh, Donald Trump
he
wishes the
loves
South
Robert E.
won.
Lee. That's
Yeah.
right. He loves Robert.
They
E. Lee.
love to take things out of context and
Yeah.
distort things.
Well,
But
they don't even have to take them out. They make them up entirely. Okay,
They do.
make
that
'em.
too.
But it's interesting when you mentioned the.
I did that thread that got like 8 million
very popular.
impressions.
And all those people love me. I mean, some of these women, they're so stupid.
Why
And,
would he
Joy,
specify women?
She would every time she'd see me, I'd be in the theater or something, and she'd, you have to be on the show again. Come on, let's go. We have
she
to.
loved you.
To love me.
That episode where,
By the way,
people
Whoopi-
should watch that episode just to see what we're talking
Oh.
about. Like I said, we don't want to get a copyright strike, so we're not
I've
going to
seen
put it
it.
up. But
He's
if you
right.
watch the episode, it's bananas. It's like an alternative universe, and it's only
But Whoopi
9
loved
years
me.
ago.
Whoopi loved
Loved
me.
you, gives you a hug and a kiss.
And how about that other one, the new one on there, the one from my administration? She writes me a letter. You're the greatest president. She leaves. She worked as an assistant press secretary. I hardly knew her, but she leaves and she writes me this gorgeous letter. What's her name? She was. I don't even know.
Is he
she-
pretending
she was
that he
in
doesn't
the
know her name, or
administration.
does he
She's
actually
on now
not?
currently. Sits in the far right-hand side, whatever the hell her name is, and she writes a letter, the most beautiful letter. She's quoted in the paper. He was the greatest president, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden she goes to the View. She started hitting the hell out of me because they won't hire her unless. I've had many people go on CNN and they called and said, I don't know what to do. They want to pay me a lot, but I have to be negative on you. I said, be negative. That's okay. There are guys on like CNN, they won't hire them. Sean Duffy is a congressman, and he retired. He got a good job with CNN, but he was only positive about Trump. So they kept him, but they would never put him on. I mean, I respect what he did. He could have gone, negative. I tell people, go negative. Let my friends make the money.
Well,
it's
just
so crooked. The press
It
is so crooked.
It's crooked, but it's also they're diminishing themselves.
They're hurting themselves.
They're killing all their credibility, and it's opening up the credibility to new media. It's opening up the credibility to independent media. All these.
The worst I've ever seen, though, and I've seen the worst. I mean, I've been a part of it. I've seen the worst. Kamala goes on 60 Minutes, gave an answer that a child wouldn't give. It was so bad. And 60 Minutes
What's he talking about?
took the answer out. They took the whole, and they put another answer in.
They edited it deceptively,
Which didn't make
Yeah.
sense either, but it was better. They took it wasn't editing. It was fraud.
It was, yeah.
This was not editing.
Right.
Editing is where I'll
Right,
give an
Google
answer
that.
and they'll take a couple of words and change them around, or they might even take a sentence or two off, which is very bad. But it's sort of bad. I'd give an answer which was a very good answer. I always talk about, I like to give the weave. I like to give
Yeah, you like to weave things
yeah,
in.
but when you do the weaves, and you have to be very smart to do weaves. When you do the weave, look at this, just in this
Well,
one
they're
thing, we're
denying
talking
it.
about
It's
little
gonna be he
pieces
said,
of
she
money,
said.
but
They're
it
not gonna
always
sit
ends
there
up,
digging for an hour
it
to
comes
figure
back
it
home.
out.
Yeah.
For the right people. For the wrong people, it doesn't come back home, and they end up in the wilderness, right? but they can take my answer, and you know what? They may take a little piece of it out or something, and they use the term, yes, we wanted to save time. Well, it's not, but I've never heard. I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcast history, what happened to CBS. So you have CBS 60 Minutes. That's a news program. It's not an entertainment program. It's under their news. It's the head of their news thing. She gives an answer that shows that she's essentially incompetent. And they took the answer. Could you imagine them doing that for
We can
me?
show it if you want people to see it. Can we
Go
show
ahead.
it? No.
Sure.
We get in trouble. We'll get copyright strike. Okay.
I'll
Listen, anyone can find
indemnify
it,
you.
but it's drastic. But what was interesting was the other full version was available initially. It was like a preview.
Somebody made a big mistake.
Somebody put that preview out
Some
there.
kid
and
put
then,
the preview out.
exactly.
And then the bosses did this or that.
kinda
And then
thought
all of a
this
sudden they
was
said,
true.
we got a problem.
But now I'm not
exactly.
sure.
And then
They got caught
became-
by mistake.
Well,
But don't you think that's a bit, to me, and don't forget, this is election interference and fraud. And it's 60 Minutes, it's their news division. So
it's a big deal.
They give those licenses out, Joe, for free. They should pay a fortune. They're worth a fortune. They give them out for free because they're using the public airwaves. With cable, you don't have that. Cable's different. But, it's just a different deal. But with the networks, they give those licenses. They're worth billions of dollars. They give them
Billions
out
and
free, but you have to be
billions.
honest and all. That was bad. I think that David
Well, it
Muir
hasn't
and that
changed
woman
since the
that
episode
was
came out.
aside, I never even heard of her, but they kept interrupting me. It was like, I said, how many people am I debating here? I got this one and I got you two. But he went after me 11 different times. It's interesting. I always thought he was a nice guy, but he's just like the rest of them, you know?
Well, that's his job, unfortunately, and I'm
No,
sure
but not when they're
what they
wrong.
want. You're right. Well, the problem was they fact-checked you, and they didn't fact-check her. And
Not
one of the
at
most
all.
egregious examples of that was
So
when
far,
she
Nick, it
said
seems pretty
that
boring, to be honest.
there are no troops right now deployed in
Yeah.
war zones.
Yeah.
There's a very famous
That's not
viral
true.
video
That's
that went
never
online
true.
of troops in a war zone saying, "Well, what the fuck are we then?" Because there's thousands of them. Dan Crenshaw, the congressman, posted on his Instagram all of the various examples.
Well, I don't want to hear about
of
Dan Crenshaw.
Too many.
troops that are deployed, thousands and thousands of troops that are currently deployed.
Stupidly deployed.
But the point is, if this is going to be an actual real debate and not a propaganda exercise, if it's going to be a real debate, you have to fact check everybody.
So
Like if
they-
someone
they
says
never
maybe
wanna-
she
Fires.
thought there was no,
Right.
which is also a problem. So it's one of two
I
things.
wish that he said
it's
Dibble
either
should be
it was
deported.
not true, it was
Although
a
Dibble
lie on
lives in the
purpose,
UK.
which is terrible,
You should stay
or
there.
it was the opposite. It was ignorance, which is also terrible.
Well, Joe, when I said crime is soaring, he said, no, crime has gone down. I said, where did you hear that one? Crime has gone down. I mean, I'm debating with this guy, but I've had that.
Well, there was amended FBI statistics that came out after that
Yeah.
showed that crime had gone up substantially.
And by the way, the statistics were a fraud because when they put out the statistics, they didn't include some of the worst places. They didn't include some of the worst cities, some of the most deadly places.
Yeah, I believe
But when
And
the
there
real
was also a
numbers came
problem-
out, I turned out to be right. But I haven't gotten...
you turn out to be right, but then there's another problem. Unreported crime is way up because
Yeah.
people have lost. Look,
almost
the
on
morale
European
that the police
soil,
department
Bingle. Sorry,
has
he's
in a
close to
lot of
you,
these
man. You
cities
can
what they've
keep
done
him.
is defund the police bullshit.
Right,
The morale of these
It
poor
is.
cops, it's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest idea
So
of all
bad,
time.
so
But
bad.
what they've done is they've made these cops feel terrible. They're like good cops. I think cops are just like everybody else. Most of them are great. It's like everybody else. But if you run into one carpenter and he does a shitty job in your house,
right.
you say carpenters fucking suck. But they don't suck. Most of them are great. And
Police
that's the
have
key
been-
thing with cops. But the point is
Yeah.
like they did all of these things in this very foolish way.
Right.
And these cops are suffering the consequences of it. And so subsequently what happens is a lot of crime is unreported. A lot of crime, like you call the cops, they're too busy, they can't even get to you. Oh, your house got broken into?
Yeah, those
Sorry.
don't get put into
you
the
know,
statistics
it doesn't even make
if
a
they
report.
don't-
There's a lot of
yeah.
people that they just give up.
It's so sad what's happened. And I'll tell you what, I go to police funerals, and we went to one in Long Island. I visited the family in Long Island, a very big deal. It's so dangerous.
Oh yeah, he is
People don't
Turkish,
realize-
but he can answer
car,
for himself. But he lives in
dark
the UK.
windows,
Switch my
pull
battery
over.
1 second.
He's a gentleman. Please pull over. Door opens, guy comes out firing. Even if they were allowed to pull out their gun, which they're not, they can't, pull
Do
out
it in
the gun.
time. Yeah.
They still wouldn't have time.
It's every cop's worst nightmare.
They opened a door.
Does happen.
And he was killed, and his partner was hurt. He was killed, and you don't even have an eighth of a second to think, and it is such a dangerous job. That in particular, think of it. You go up to a car, you don't know who's sitting there with a gun, and if they have a gun, you really don't have a chance. You're not
lot of
allowed to have your
murders.
gun out, by the way. They have very strict rules. So, number one, but even if you could have your gun out, the door opens and bullets start firing out, and especially where they have the dark windows, where they have the darkened windows. It is such a dangerous profession, and it's very hard to get cops now because they're not given any
Who would want to do
backup.
that job?
And you're
Ridiculous.
right. You can, they have like an eighth of a second to make a decision that's going to change their life. If they make the wrong decision, they're going to end up on the front page of every newspaper in the country. And they're going to lose their house and their pension and their job, and their wife is going to be gone, and everything's going to
Absolutely.
be gone.
And here's another thing that people don't talk about. How many of them have PTSD? Probably most of them.
A lot.
Yeah, it's
These
a
guys are
tough
seeing
job.
people shot all the time.
Yep.
I've talked to a ton of cops about it, and a lot of cops commit suicide. A lot of cops are deeply depressed. A lot of
But we have to
cops,
give
they've
them
seen-
back their
Yes.
dignity. We just have to give them back. You said it so good. You never hear anybody say that. You're never going to have it perfect. You're going to have a bad apple.
in everything, in every
Right.
profession.
But every time there's a bad apple, that gets massive publicity, and it taints everybody else.
But it's also this very irresponsible thing where people say defund the police, get rid of the police. Even Kamala Harris was a part of that. That it's a very stupid way to look at it. What you should do is fund the police. You should have better training. You should have
He's been saying
cops
this for
that feel
years,
more
since he
appreciated.
talked to a
You
Navy
should have
SEAL.
something that helps mitigate this PTSD that all of them suffer through.
Right. She was a big part of defund the police. That was a big thing for her.
I'm not
defund
sure
the
she
police.
was.
Always defund the police.
Well,
Let's
it's a
find out.
political idea,
but
right?
anybody with that political thought,
Yeah.
I don't think should be running for president. And I think people are getting wise to it. You know, we're doing
Oh.
pretty well now. I don't know. Maybe in
Never
a week
mind.
from now, say sorry
I
about
stand
that.
corrected.
I was wrong, but we're leading everything. And I think we're going to have a very good election.
She
but
did,
I tell
at the very least,
because
praise it
people
at
are
least
starting to
once.
get to know her. But she was defund the police.
I don't
She
really
was
play
all these
hoist for. I don't
transgender
like the
operations.
modern stuff.
You know,
as
if you
much.
wanted a sex change and you were in detention and you demanded a sex change, they would give you a sex change.
Well, the wildest one is this idea of giving free sex change to illegal immigrants.
That's right.
That's
in
a real
detention.
thing.
That
far as I-
is the wildest
But
thing.
she
Like,
was-
is that the biggest problem you have?
Yeah.
You just walked here from
They
Guatemala.
consider
and you
it
need to become a girl.
healthcare.
But she was in
So,
favor of it.
Yes.
So think
That's
of it.
why. But
She was now she changed. She
That's the
changed
reason. I don't
15
agree,
policies. In fact, I'm going to send her a MAGA cap.
She
because
stole your idea about no tax for tips.
I came up with this idea that honestly nobody ever heard of. And now it took her 2 months, but
if you
know
tip in
what?
cash, there's
Well,
no
it caught fire.
taxes
And she
anyway.
just put it into a little speech. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it became
but I think we
popular.
have. I think we still have that issue. I
Did
think
she
that issue is
really?
a good one for us. But no, we have a lot of good issues. You know, we had the other day. Think of how simple some of these things are. We're trying to get cars built in the
Wow.
United States. Detroit has been
She
really
did
tough.
do
It's been a
that.
disaster. They have a huge factory, a huge car auto plant being built by China in Mexico, make cars, sell them in the United States, put everybody out of business. Right, here we go again. I said, if that plant is there when I'm president, I will put 100 or 200% tariffs on every car. They'll be unsaleable in the United States.
Whoa.
And they just announced they're not going to build the plant because they think I'm going to win. Think of it.
If you're able
They're
to
not gonna
chip
build the
in,
plant.
chip in
This was the
now to
biggest
the
plant
Minnesota
in the
Freedom Fund
world.
to help post
It
bail for
would've-
those
more than
protesting on the
all of
ground.
Michigan makes.
If you're
That's how big-
protesting, you don't get
this is what
arrested.
We're getting to.
You get arrested for rioting.
And I said, if that plan
What
goes up,
the
I want them
heck?
to understand if I win, I'm going to tax those cars at the rate of 100 or 200% apiece so that you won't be able to sell them in the United States.
Good point,
They just
JC.
announced they're not going to build the plant.
Yeah, I read this.
I did a big favor for our country by doing that. And I'm not even there yet. To me,
Yeah.
the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks,
Yeah, that sucks,
in the
man.
dictionary today, and any is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than anything. It's
Yeah,
the most
I know they're
beautiful word.
required to. I
This
mean
country
more
can
in
become
practice.
Rich.
Maybe not at a corporate
the use-
spot,
the
but you know,
proper
if you go to the
use
crappy
of
bars that I
tariffs,
go
it'll
Did
to,
you
I
just
hope they're
float
not
out
declaring
the
it.
idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure, but why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow
Wasn't McKinley
the enemy to
assassinated by an
come in and
anarchist?
take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price.
Did you guys just hear
and
that?
the big price
Why
is
is this happening
tariffs.
to me? Did you just hear
And
my
he'd
system
speak
beep?
like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income
It just
tax.
keeps putting itself back
And you know
on.
why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. You know, believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now, but we had a commission meeting in the I think it was 1887. Think of this problem. We were so rich, we had so much money, we didn't know what to do. So they set up a blue ribbon commission on tariffs. And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China
take
does it.
our
That's what China
jobs.
did. If you want to open a factory and sell cars, if you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They wouldn't take our cars. But if you build a plant in China, you can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of
I love him.
Elon. He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy.
Yeah,
that
South
rocket
Africa,
coming in.
different planet.
Yeah.
I told,
He's my favorite
I
African
told the
American.
story once or twice. So you may have heard it because these speeches have been good. Did you see the one last night?
Yeah, I did.
29,000 people. That was
Yeah.
And the one the night before was the same thing. We are rocking and rolling. But Elon, and I'm talking to this very important guy. I said, wait a minute. I'm looking at something. The television's unmuted, right? And I see this rocket. It's all brown from the heat. You know, it's like 10,000 degrees pouring down at thousands of miles an hour. And I see this thing, you know, it's like a 20-story building.
And it catches
And I
it.
say to this guy, who's an important guy, wait a minute, let me just put you down. Hold it. I got to see this. And I see this, and it's going to crash. I say, it's going to crash into the gantry. They call it a gantry. I said, oh, man, that's going to be a disaster because it's starting to get very close. And then all of a sudden you see the flames in the bottom.
What's up, Craig? Good to
And
see
then
you.
boom, and then you see the two arms grab it.
Crazy.
And I forgot the guy. I had him on the phone. I forgot. No, I said,
Yeah, Vinny, I was as well. I was in the
No, I
Marine
called
Corps at
Elon.
that
I said,
time.
was that you? He
We
said,
had
"That
one of the
was me."
first trans people.
And I said,
they're,
who else
they're,
can
I
do
mean,
that? He said, nobody.
if you're
Russia can't do
non-deployable
it.
for your
The
entire
United States,
contract,
nobody
you're
can do it.
basically
You know, I
worthless.
set
You're
up
just,
Space Force. That was me.
for
And
anything,
That's the first
for
time
anything,
in
not just
82 years
this,
that
not
we
just
opened another
that
branch
surgery, but
since
other
the
stuff.
Air Force. And that's
Yeah,
going
thank
to be
you,
one
Craig.
of our most important things.
Hit the like and
think of what
subscribe.
Elon does. And he
Patreon's
did
$2
one
a
other thing
month.
that I never heard of it. It's
Down below.
Starlink. I went down
Axios
to North
Fitness.
Carolina, Georgia, the different places. I followed it right down, and they had no communication. The poles were all knocked down. Everything. And one of the guys in North Carolina said, "Could you do me a favor? Do you know Elon Musk?" Yes. He endorsed me. By the way, he gave me the nicest endorsement too. The tough. He said the country's going to fail. You should do the same thing, Joe, because you cannot be voting for Kamala. Kamala, you're not a Kamala person. I know you. I've watched you. I know him better than he is. You know what? Without speaking to you, I think I know you maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched
Okay,
you for
well, that's
so
an
many
insane
years.
thing
You're
to
not a
say.
Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. No, nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
Oh, they know who
he
Khabib
was.
is.
He was not bad, right? That guy.
he
Why
was
would
phenomenal.
Trump think
But
that
that's
people
your
don't
kind of-
Your
know
weave
who
is getting
Khabib
wide.
is?
We're
No,
getting
no,
wide with
my
this
weave.
weave.
But isn't it
I want
much
to bring it
better?
back to tariffs.
But wait one second before we finish with tariffs. So they said
Trump has
they
grandpa
said,
energy
"Could
right
you get
now.
him? We need
Am I wrong?
Starlink." And I call Elon. He got it for him so fast. Saved
Yeah,
so many
it's
lives.
in English. It's
And I
just
said,
reindeer.
How was it? They said better than the wires. You know,
There's
they
no
couldn't put them in.
S.
They were all gone. So getting
I
back
used
to
it
tariffs.
recently in Utah
It's
in the
great.
mountains.
Did you find it good?
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's the size of a iPad. You just set it down on the ground. You get high-speed internet. It's incredible.
We're spending, just to show you, we're spending $1 trillion to get cables all over the country, right? Up to upstate areas where you have like 2 farms and they're spending millions of dollars to have
Well,
a cable.
talk about the
Elon can do it for
$42 billion
nothing.
that was wasted on this internet access program. That United States, they didn't get anybody
They haven't
access
hooked
to
up.
internet.
They haven't hooked up one person.
Not one
yet.
person. They
That's
spent
right.
$42 billion. They could have gotten Starlinks to everybody with that kind of money.
For almost nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
they
a
brought it to
monthly
the
charge.
Amazon.
And it would have been incredible.
Not that I think
And
that was
he-
a good
and he
High-speed
wanted
decision,
to-
internet
but they
everywhere you
did
want to
it.
go.
And he wanted to do that.
And he wanted to do it.
How about this? They built the charger stations, right?
Millions
In the
and
Midwest.
millions.
Midwest. They built 8 of them. They cost $9 billion. That's like a gas pump, right? They built 9 gas pumps, except electricity comes out. They spent $9 billion. 3 of them don't work. The whole thing. There's so much waste. I could sit here and tell you about things that there's so much waste, abuse, and fraud.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think everybody's aware of that
Let's
now.
get back to tariffs.
When you're talking about one of the criticisms of your administration was with tax cuts and with tariffs, you increased the deficit. So, what was the strategy behind that? And did you think it was going to increase the deficit by a substantial amount?
Okay, we were ready to rock. It was all, I had a bad system. We had horrible tax policy. I made it great with a much lower tax rate. So I took it from almost 40% down to 21%. Now I'm bringing it from 21 down to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States, which is great. People call me, they said, what a great idea. Nobody ever heard of that before. I don't care if they make the product in Japan. Why should I give them? So it's at 21. At 21,
That sounds good.
in the first year, we took in much more revenue than we did at almost 40. Think of that. It inspired. Now we had other things too.
Ow.
We were able to get people to bring back their money. You couldn't bring back your money if you had money in Europe, like Apple. Apple had many billions of dollars outside. They couldn't bring it. There was no way to bring it back in. The bureaucracy, the documents, the whole thing, and also the tax was too high. They wanted like half of it or something. Nobody's going to do that. So they leave their money in Japan and they spend their money there. That was part of what I did. the money came pouring back in. Apple took in hundreds of billions of dollars. They brought it back from overseas. They brought it in.
So how does the deficit increase because of that?
So what happened is this. We were ready to rock and roll, and then we had the COVID thing, and we had to focus on that.
All right. Well, that's
And if we didn't give some businesses a hand, they would have all. You would have had a depression like in 1929. But we were ready to start.
Well, I
We were
disagree
going to-
with his
We were
administration's
very
handling of
shortly
that.
been paying off debt.
and the next
You know, we have
administration.
$35 trillion in
It's
debt.
a massive transfer of
And I'll
wealth
never
from the
forget
poorest
it.
to the
We
richest
were-
in America.
It was talking about from the standpoint of being in office. I'm in the Oval Office, and I have John McLaughlin and Fabrizio. They're two very good pollsters.
McLaughlin.
Probably, I don't know. I would say the two best. Who knows?
Get those mix
But
out of the
very good
administration.
And we're starting to think about running for a second term. And we had the greatest economy in history. Never has there been an economy like
And you
this.
attribute that to
best
lowering
economy.
taxes
a lot
and
of it.
tariffs.
Two things. And also I cut regulations more than anybody else. And if I asked many of the
Wish they'd
businessmen,
simplify the
from the
tax
big
code.
companies, the guys running the big companies, I'd say, so if you had your choice, you've had it now for a long time, what's more important to you, the tax cuts, you paid less tax, or the regulation cuts? Every one of them said the regulation cuts meant more. Who would think that, right? Because you don't equate it to dollars, but it actually is more dollars. We had it going, and then we just had to focus on something else. But they were sitting
you
there. These two pollsters were sitting there, and they said, "Sir, if George Washington came back, and Abraham Lincoln was his VP, as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if
He's pretty
Abraham
bad.
Lincoln was his
Like,
VP,
I
they couldn't
probably
beat you.
dislike him more than
You have
Kamala.
it.
He's weaker
And I'll never
somehow.
forget it. The following day, they said, something's happening in China, sir. Could we meet? I said, what's happening? People are dying. And it was all around the Wuhan lab, by the way. There are pictures with little lines, they're body bags, all around.
Yeah, I remember that. I was
the
following
Wuhan lab.
for
And
a
I
few
always said that
months.
from the beginning, Joe.
what was
They
going on.
tried to say, first they said it was France, and they blamed everybody.
Right.
But then they say it was bats from a cave 2,000 miles away. So we got hit with that. And despite that, we had the best economy. And when I gave it over, the stock market was higher than it was pre-COVID. I mean, nobody could even believe it. But we saved it. And we were helping businesses. They were dying. They were
So
dying.
it's your belief that if you had a second term, given the policies in place, the way the economy was booming, that you would have been able to pay off a lot of the debt. And
if
that was
we
the
didn't
strategy.
have COVID, we would have been paying off debt, and we would have had. And don't forget, by growth,
that
the word growth is actually more
true?
important in a way, because you could have the same debt, but if you doubled your growth, all of a sudden you're under levered. But still, we
He's
should
right
pay off
on
debt.
that.
If you viewed this $35 trillion right now, it's a lot. But if you look at the asset value, if you looked at it purely as an asset value, we have oil underground, we have water, we have mountains, the assets are so enormous. But regardless of that,
Drill, baby,
at
drill.
35 trillion in debt, we should pay it off. And we would have started paying off debt and probably even given further tax reductions. I want to get it down to 15%.
Why?
We're going to do more business.
Why is this happening to me?
But when you get hit with a COVID, everything stops, and you have to keep these businesses alive. The businesses were dying. I mean, they were just dying. This whole place, this country was going to die.
Are there influences outside of environmental that keep people from wanting to drill for oil and frack and do those sort of things outside of the environmental concerns, which are legitimate, of course?
No,
But are there other influences that maybe over accentuate or over exaggerate these environmental effects? Are people being influenced in a way where they're trying to keep us from producing American oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the environmental is the biggest tool for stopping growth, the biggest tool. The other is regulation. And if you speak to
Okay.
Elon, he said the regulation now to send a rocket
hearing
up
me?
to anywhere, even if you do everything, it's becoming impossible.
You have my
But they
attention.
use environmental
Trump.
in order to get people not to do anything. And sometimes I say, I look at some of I know the environmental stuff better because I had to build buildings in New York. I had to do environmental impact studies. And I would see some of these guys that I'd hire for a lot of money, environmentalists that would get you through the process. And they'd be up in Albany, that's the capital of New York, and they're up there trying to make it tougher for guys like me that were builders because they'd get paid more money. In other words, I had one guy,
lobbyists lobbying for more
highly
regulation. Yeah, this is
recommended. You know, I was good at
there's a
getting
clear
permits. I
incentive
was one of the
structure
kings of. I was always
in
very
place
good.
for that.
But the environmental stuff was always horrible. They could slow a project down 10 years, 15 years. I had a project in Louisiana, built big LNG plant. It
Didn't
was
used to be like this.
for 14 years. It was going to cost $18 billion. One of the biggest, like the Empire State Building, laying down on its side times 4. Massive on the coast,
Oh.
on the Gulf Coast. And they said, sir, they're going to
Don
give
the
it up.
builder,
I said,
can
they
he
shouldn't
fix
give it up.
it?
What's the problem? They can't get their
Fantastic.
environmental. They had environmental permits that would fill this whole room up to the ceiling. And they said there was one mistake on one little line. They want them to do it all over again. It's not going to happen. And I got them their permit instantly. And they built the plant. It's massive.
So when you're saying that, so
weapon.
there's people that are making money by making it difficult.
Yeah,
Are you
they
talking
make-
about lawyers?
No, I'm
Because
well,
they're
I'm talking
lobbyists,
about
Joe.
environmental
Holy
consultants
crap.
and lawyers. Yeah.
environmental
know this.
consultants profit
No, they're
off of
just
dragging
lobbyists.
out the
Why are they not
process.
using the term lobbyists?
And
they
how do
make
they
the
profit?
process worse.
How do they profit
And I'd
off that?
probably do the same thing if I were them, to be honest.
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
the
You know,
incentive
I wanna
structure.
Be honest with you.
How do
The
they do
incentive
that?
structure is the
How do they
problem.
make it?
They
how
go,
do they,
let's say New York, they go to Albany.
Dude,
Okay.
there is a
and
word
they
for this.
convince
This is so
people that,
frustrating.
if you have a certain type of plant on the ground that's this big and, in theory, valueless, that it's a rare plant.
Is that
and you
real or was that a
cannot ever
joke?
even touch it. You can't go near it. You can't put a building on it. You can't do anything. Or there's a little puddle, and they call it a lake. And you have to go by the standards of a lake. I said, no, that's a puddle. Oh, you have no idea. Guys are filling a little puddle. You have no idea what they do.
And
It's
so,
hard.
but-
and they use it as a way to stop you.
They use it as a way to stop you, and also as a way to generate money. I'm
a weapon.
curious how are they generating money that way?
They're
though?
generating
Well, they
money.
get fees.
Oh my
They get
god.
fees.
They
Massive
get-
fees.
Dude,
And
you pay these guys.
People
You guys-
rely
am
on
I
them
crazy?
as
Do you guys-
experts
you guys know what he's
because
talking
they're the
about,
people
right?
that they go to when they
Yeah.
have to
The people
run these
who
studies
make
in the
money-
first
But
place.
some of them are
As
just
the
bad guys,
consultants,
and they're trying to make it more and more
They increase
And they have a lot of
regulations so they
power.
make more money from payments.
Yeah, I
That's
think
all it
they
is.
maybe had more. They didn't have as much with me because I would get through them, and I understood it. Look, I've done so many.
Because then they get
call it
more money
environmental impact
when they
study.
do their jobs.
I did
The
so much to
environmental
build a
impact
building.
study-
To build a
impact
building in New
studies.
York is very tough. You got to be very. You got to deal with. Think of it, financing.
Yeah, it is simple. Thank you,
unions,
Blue Frost. I thought I was losing my
all the
mind here that this isn't like
municipal
common
stuff,
knowledge.
Environmental. Of all of it, to
Yeah,
me, the
okay.
toughest thing
Even the
was
Serbian guy
environmental.
understands. He's not even
Because
American,
they could
right?
stop
Or are you American
cold
of Serbian
with the
descent?
environmental impact study stuff, and you hire a so-called expert. They say, sir, he's the one guy he can get you through the morass. It's a morass. It's horrible. They use it as a weapon. They use it all over the country.
Right, but there are legitimate concerns about environmental
There
impact,
are,
correct?
there
Like,
are,
look
but-
about the BP
God,
oil
he doesn't
spill.
get it.
There's a lot of things that do happen that are environmentally devastating,
Sure, yeah.
and you want to mitigate that as much
you
as possible.
do. You do. Look, I
that
had,
doesn't mean that's
during
why
our
they're
4
put into
years, we had the
place.
cleanest air and the cleanest water. I view it differently. I say air and water. Remember this. It costs much more to do things environmentally clean. China doesn't
Much
do
like
anything.
Right.
When
Djokovic.
Kerry goes
Fantastic.
to see
Love
President
Djokovic.
Xi of
I don't really like
China,
tennis, but he's my favorite
which
guy.
he probably doesn't even get to see him. But they look at him, oh, yes, we will do. Oh, yes, we're going to do that. No more coal, no more coal. And then they approve 58 coal plants for the next, they build a coal plant a week, okay?
They build a lot of coal plants.
But let me
we've
just tell
covered
you,
that.
though, so here we are cleaning and scrubbing everything, and everything's got to, and the air's got to be pure. But in 3.8 days,
Yep.
that stuff floated
was a
over
bad one.
China,
I
is
forgot
right over
about
the
that.
top of us.
Fitting that it
Same
was
thing
also
with the
named
oceans.
Palestine
They dump
as another
their
place
garbage
that the American
into the
government doesn't
Pacific
care
Ocean.
about.
If you take a little cork and put it there, in about a week and a half, it'll be in front of Los Angeles. We're picking up their garbage. So nobody ever talks about that. But in a way, the bigger one is even the air. It's the currents. It's an amazing thing. It's been flowing that way for 1,000,000 years, or long before.
We
long
share
before
air
we
with the
were
whole
there.
world. Yeah.
No, if we're
We get
cleaning,
the Sahara dust clouds over here.
absolutely.
We get dust clouds in Austin from the Sahara Desert.
That's crazy.
But we get the China, they call it the China curse. We get the China curse they're bad, and their air is dirty. You know, when I went there,
He's right.
I had a
That's
great
just a fact. I'm
relationship
sure
with
that
President Xi. We
somebody
got
is
along
going to
very
call
well.
that racist somehow.
And they treated me better than anybody has ever been treated. Same thing with Saudi Arabia, a number of them. But they laid it out. And I said, this air is good. Do you know they closed every factory 1 week before I got there from within 200 miles?
That's like what Gavin Newsom did when Xi Jinping came to San
He
Francisco.
cleaned it up.
He cleaned it up. He got rid of all
Isn't
the
that
Yeah, that was
terrible in a
crazy.
way?
That
to
did
think,
happen.
You know,
I remember
he
that
cleaned it up,
explicitly.
and then it became a pigsty.
Well, the
He
dumbest
is-
thing is he said when your friends come by, when you have visitors, you clean up your house. Like, how about just keep your fucking house clean?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've
Your
ever heard anybody
constituents
say
are not your
ever as
friends,
a
I guess.
governor as to excuse to why you finally cleaned up your homeless problem.
And the day he left,
Right back to
it
it.
went right back.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was a bad thing that he did because he showed
showed it could be done.
what a disgrace that
Yeah.
was. What a disgrace.
Well, this is the thing that like shows you how foolish a lot of these people that are running these cities think. A lot of these people that are running these states think. It's foolish. Like you're insulting the intelligence of the people that live in that city that are impacted by these people just camping and needles and human feces. There's an app
Horrible.
that you can buy. There's an app that you can get rather that will show you where the human feces has been documented in
Yeah.
San Francisco. It's a poo
It's the
app.
India of America.
And it's just everywhere. It's just bum crap everywhere.
But let me give you
Bum
one that
crap everywhere.
you may not know,
Okay.
which I think you know everything, actually. As
That's
a
not
student,
true.
as a student of yours,
They don't even know the word
but-
lobbyist.
water. You know, in Los Angeles, you can't get proper amounts of water.
Right.
And it's unbelievably expensive.
What
And you
does
might have
proper
a house
amounts
in
of water
Beverly
mean?
Hills, and they're actually thinking about rationing water. Can you believe it?
I can believe
And
it. I used to live there.
I was in the farm court country with some of the congressmen. We're driving up a highway, and I say, "How come all this land is so barren? It's farmland, and it looked terrible. It was just brown and bad." I said, "But there's always that little corner that's so green and beautiful." They said, "We have no water." I said, "Do you have a drought?" "No, we don't have a drought." I said, "Why do you have no water?" "Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north. Water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Millions and millions of gallons of water.
You got to
gets
be
poured.
kidding me, man.
You got to see this. We're driving up, and I had never seen it before. It's like Iowa. It's the most fertile land. Iowa's blessed with great land. Idaho for a potato, right?
Yeah.
But they're just, by the way, you know, some land is good for a potato, some land is good for corn. It's the craziest thing. I love the farmers. They're great. They're the greatest. And by the way, they're getting killed right now.
They are.
They're getting killed because
That's
of the
true.
stupid administration. But so I see this, and I said, "You got to be kidding." I said, "You mean you have water?" And I looked at it. It's like a valve in your sink, except it's massive. The thing's 5 times taller than your ceiling.
Did you know the center of California was a giant lake?
They have so much water.
You ever see what it looked like before they
No, I
rerouted
never
it?
saw that,
The
no.
center of California, like, what is it, 200 years ago? How long ago did they do that, Jamie? The center of California had a fucking enormous lake in the middle of
So
California.
they dumped it into the Pacific.
Who knows what they did? But whatever
we
foolishness
gotta
that they
look up.
did
Well,
led
think
to the situation that they're in now.
Think of those dry forests that burned down all over the world. You know, the head of Austria said,
There
you
it
know,
is, Tulare Lake or Tachi Lake. It's a freshwater lake in
Freshwater.
the southern San Joaquin Valley, United States. Historically, Tulare Lake was one of the largest freshwater lakes west of Mississippi.
What?
Show a photo of what it looked like back then.
it's a great system.
So that's what it looked like. Look at that
Wow.
image. Now go to the one on
wow.
the third from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Oh,
was
wow.
an
What a
enormous lake
beautiful
in the
thing.
middle of California.
That-
Imagine that.
That'd be much more valuable
How
property.
crazy is that?
Oh,
But how
wow.
crazy is
So
that's
what
what it
did
used to
they
look
do?
like? And human beings screwed that
No,
up.
they let it go into the Pacific, and then they.
I don't know
did
what they
something.
did. What did they do? How did it go
Wow.
missing?
No way.
Yeah, they drained it.
What?
1983. Oh my God. It went dry a handful of times. Oh, it went dry a handful of times. Well, you know, lakes do go dry, but that's a big one.
But think of
It's a
it.
big one to go
you
dry.
could have all of the water you need, all of that land would have more water. The whole thing could be like that little patch.
Yeah.
Literally, I'd say I was with Devin Nunes, a congressman, and other congressmen. We were going up. I was
Whoa.
visiting that because
I mean, I think
they
this
asked me
is
to
like
go up and visit their territory. And I did.
artist
But I
rendition.
kept
So
saying, look
who
at this land.
knows?
It's
But
beautiful, but it's so dry.
whoa.
And I thought they were going through like a desert, like a drought. They said, no, we have water, but it gets rid. So I looked into it.
What is the fish?
And I got it done. I could have water for all of that land, water for your forests. You know, your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Dangerous.
That water could be routed. You know, you could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on
Billions and
forest
billions.
fires. And, you know, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. When
Okay,
a tree
that's
falls down,
insane.
after 18 months, it becomes very dry. It's like, you know, like real firewood. It's
Yeah.
bad. You know, a tree that's up, these are all things
They're
I
not managing the forest. I'm
learned
pretty sure that's
the
true.
hard way, the easy way. But when a tree is up, it sucks water. It's wet. I went to they had a couple of horrible forest fires in California, and I said, you know, you had a lot of trees standing. Yes, they were healthy trees, sir. I said, with this intense heat, that you could see they were charred a little bit on the bottom, but they were going to be all right because they're soaking wet because they suck up the water, right? But when they fall,
Right.
they're like, you know, it's like lighting a match.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to clean. They call it maintain your forest. So I was
Yeah.
with the head of Austria. He said, you know, it's a
Austria.
shame. I see all those forest fires in California, and all they have to do is
What do you
clean
mean
their
by
forest,
stable
meaning
lake,
rake it
Minoan?
up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, you know, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
We'll
they're,
certainly
you know,
get rid of the deadfall.
and get rid of the trees that are falling
Yeah.
that you know, are like so many things this country. By the way,
Could you
I
really
had it
rake the
all
whole
done.
forest, though? I don't think you could rake the whole forest.
you could
I think you
break
get
it
rid of the deadfall,
selectively.
but raking all
you
the
could
leaves.
certainly get rid of the
You could
dead,
create
okay?
areas.
They
I
don't
think
that's
suppo-
the real
You
issue,
know,
is the deadfall.
environmentally,
To
they don't
stop
want to do that.
the
They don't,
spread
they
of a
said, you know,
wildfire
it's got to be
in
nature and all
certain
this
areas,
stuff. But in the meantime,
strategically.
this is exactly
Yeah.
right. But you could have, so it was the Department of Commerce that needed the approvals, but Gavin Newsom had to sign them. I got it all done. Nobody could believe it. It was all done. I said, I got it. You got so much water. All you have to do is sign. And that guy didn't want to sign.
Did he not want to sign because that would be a political victory for you?
I think no, he didn't. No, I don't think so. He used to say he's a great president, and we got along. We did. We actually got along at that point. But I think somebody said you just can't continue to call him a great president. You know, they do say that. But we had it all done. He didn't sign, and then we got on to other things. And I every time I go to California, I said, you have so much water. They don't know it. I'm telling you, people living in Beverly Hills, they turn off the water. Same thing with the electric. They want to go to all electric cars, but they have brownouts every weekend, you know.
Well, right after they made the announcement
pretty
that
stupid.
as of 2035, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion engine in California.
Yeah.
Like within a month,
Even
they
the
had
Native
some
Americans
announcement
in the
asking
eastern
people to not
woodlands were
charge
doing
their
controlled
Teslas.
burns. I assume they were doing it in the west as well.
Because
I
the
just
grid
don't know
couldn't
as much
handle
about
it.
them.
Well, how are you
I
going
will.
to
I will
handle?
terminate the mandate immediately. That's a
Good,
mandate.
thank you.
That will be done, I would say, in my first day, maybe 2 days, because you know. It's
Let me
a little
ask you
bit
about
busy.
nuclear. One of the things that when I've talked to people that have a real understanding of nuclear power,
Crap.
their position is it's probably the cleanest, safest form of electricity that we could generate, and that the fears of nuclear power are really about a few disasters: the Fukushima, Three
Yep.
Mile Island. These are old
There's never been
systems,
one in the
and that
West.
they're much more
There's one in
capable
Japan
now,
from a natural
and they're capable of
disaster,
making
and then
even
the
better
Soviet
systems.
Union.
But it's a difficult political issue because you think nuclear power, you think Chernobyl.
women.
That's what everybody does. They have this connection.
Women that
They
are
have
the problem.
potential
Or
disaster.
Fukushima, which
or
is-
Fukushima.
Where you're not supposed to enter the land for 3,000 years or
Yeah,
something. You know,
it's
crazy.
I think it's worse than that. I think that area is like going to be radioactive for probably longer than
That'd be
you
crazy.
can imagine. But the point is they're better at it now.
Right.
And that they could do it now, and you can generate power in a way that you don't have to worry about these. One of the most ridiculous things is electric cars being powered by coal-fired plants. It's a ridiculous thing.
So what's happening?
Yeah,
they're
that is
more
what's happening.
efficient.
And people want to think they're being green, but it's
Well, if you look at the
It's
way
pretty
the
crazy,
battery
though.
is made, but here's the other thing:
Right.
we don't have.
That as well.
Well,
That's
we
a big
do
part of it.
actually. It's being held. We have certain areas where we have great raw earth material, and we're not allowed to use it because of the environment. And we have areas in California that have incredible raw earth, and they're not allowed.
I don't think
and
we'll
I'm
ever
going to
see a
open it
dollar
up.
a
I'm going to
gallon
let
again.
them use it.
But how do you do that?
China-
How do you do that and protect the environment?
Because the environment's going to be protected. You can do it. You can make a lake out of it. Okay, we'll put back a lake. I mean, something nice about lakes. You can do things magnificently.
You just
if
have to
know
do it carefully and
but you have to do it-
responsibly.
absolutely, you have to do it carefully. But the problem, China has all of those areas, most of those areas, and yet when they say go electric with the cars, China is going to be the one that gives us the cars. All of those guys in Detroit are
Inflation
going to be
is
out
a
of business. You're
monetary
going to make your electric
phenomenon.
cars over
It's
there.
due
We
to
have
the
a thing
Fed
called gasoline.
Nothing else.
And we
Anything
have
else is
more oil and
misdirection.
gas under our feet
Because
than
they
any other
print
nation.
money. It's based
I
on
had,
nothing. They give it to their rich friends.
In Alaska, there's a find. It's called Anwar. I got it approved. Reagan couldn't get it. Nobody
Inflation
could
is a
get it. I
far-right
got it all
conspiracy theory.
done. It was amazing. They were getting ready to start drilling. The equivalent, they think, of Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest finds in the world. It was all set to go. And Biden comes in, one of his first orders were, we're not going to use it. It would have been so good we could have supplied all of Asia with oil and gas.
What was the negative?
And you
of
talk
it?
about money.
Right.
The negative was politically they didn't think it was good for them. That's all.
That's all it was. So you don't think that it's
sure
environmentally
that's
dangerous?
Taking it from way down deep in the earth, environmentally it would have been fine.
So it can be done responsibly.
don't know enough
Oh,
about
otherwise,
that to
let's
agree with
protect the
that.
environment.
Well, I think windmills. Okay, so
Sand
they talk
batteries?
about
Good
windmills.
point.
I think windmills are
heck?
really disruptive. When you talk about the environment, they kill the birds. You want to see a bird cemetery? Go under a windmill someday that hasn't been cleaned out with all the bird carcasses. It's
Yeah.
like massive amounts of
Well, they're
birds.
also a massive eyesore. I went to
Oh,
a
they're
ranch
unreal.
in South Texas. We had to drive
Their
past this
government
enormous
surveillance.
windmill farm, and it's gross. It's dystopian. You're looking in the left and the right, and all you see is these big spinning machines that aren't even that effective at generating electricity.
Correct. Most expensive form of
Yeah, wind
electricity
is
is a
BS.
windmill. And then they start to rust and rot.
And you have to
And then they
replace
get
them.
abandoned by the people that built them. Because
Well, you have to get rid of all that material too. When you replace those blades, now you have a problem because you have
Can't
to
bury 'em.
dispose. Right, you have to dispose these enormous windmills. And how
by
do
the
you
way, they
dispose
say
of
you
them?
can't bury them. So I even question that, but I'm not going to get into it. But they say you can't bury the blades. So you have the blades, and you can't bury the blades. You can bury the blades. It's not going to matter. You can bury them. You'll find areas you can bury. But they come up. This is what I mean. They come up with this. But the environmentalist dream is windmills. Everyone. You know what happens to them? After 5 years, they start to rot. After 10 years, you have to replace them.
He means
Did you ever look
rust.
at certain parts of California where they have
Tornadoes.
heavy windmills and they've been abandoned? And they're
High
all
wind
different
just provides a lot of
manufacturers and
power,
all
right?
different companies, and they all.
haven't
Isn't that
seen
how it
that.
works?
It is the ugliest thing. It looks like a graveyard almost, a graveyard of windmills.
It's pollution.
It's so bad.
It's
And in
no
the
more,
oceans.
It's no different than leaving garbage on the ground.
How about in New Jersey, off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build. The people are going crazy not to build them, but where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. It's a vibration because you have those.
Right.
Those things are 50-story buildings. Some of them.
right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations.
They have
and
those.
sounds.
The wind is rushing. The things are blowing. It's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy, and
Yes.
something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore, and yet the environmentalists
Conveniently ignored by the
yeah, but the
environmental people.
environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
Right.
I think there's nothing uglier. I see it in Scotland. I see it all over the world. You have this beautiful valley. It's been there for, in civilization, thousands of years, but millions of years. And all of a sudden, you have these ugly
Millions.
windmills up.
Would your
And the
plan to be
environment-
replace that with nuclear? What would you do?
Well, nuclear is better. I mean, I think there's a little danger in nuclear, but, we had some really bad nuclear. They did one in Alabama. They did one in, I think, South Carolina. They do them wrong. They build these massive things. Then the environmentalists get in. I don't want to go into a long story
Don't
because
they
it's
have
too
to be
long for the
massive,
show. This
just
show
in
is too
general?
valuable to talk about concrete. But they have hardened concrete. It's number 12 concrete. It's it's harder than steel. It's incredible. They put up a wall, and
What?
an inspector comes along. Nope,
Even though they
you're a
made
quarter
it
of an inch.
concrete
The
harder
the
than
wall might
steel.
be 8 feet wide. You're a quarter of an inch too short. I'm sorry. You got to rip down the wall. You got to because it's got to be poured
No way.
contiguously.
Tell
right?
me that's not real.
You're 1/4 of an inch. I'm sorry, rip down. You can't rip it down. This stuff you can't put a hammer through it. You can't. It's incredible. concrete technology is unbelievable. What's happened. You think of concrete.
So you
but
think
they're-
that's an example of overregulation?
Yeah,
Pointless
no. Well, you have an
overregulation.
inspector that comes along and he says, take down a $25 zillion wall. These things ended up costing $25
I
billion.
want to be a whale psychiatrist.
And one of them never got opened. But here's the story. So France does it. France is largely nuclear, and they build small, little, compact plants. And if they need more, they build the same thing and they hook it up, and they hook it up, because they get too big and too complex and too expensive. And it is very clean. They say it's
small
absolutely.
is
My
relative,
uncle,
yeah.
I had a great uncle who was a great genius, just like other
Me.
members of my family. But
He was
he
dying.
was a professor at MIT for, I think, 41 years. He was the longest. So when I was in the White House, the head of MIT, Princeton, and Harvard came down to meet me. And the MIT person said, I have a book on your uncle, Dr. John Trump. He was our longest-serving professor.
somebody was bringing
He
this
a
up.
great genius, sir. Do you know how?
His uncle.
And he had...
Somebody brought
he
that
knew
up in the
everything
comments a
about
little while ago.
Nuclear, from math to chemistry to nuclear, he knew it. And he said, someday it's going to be the way to go, but the problem is it's so dangerous in terms of war. He said,
Right.
Donald, someday, and this was a long time, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump, he said, someday you'll have a little satchel at your side and you'll go into a building and you'll be able to blow up New York City. I said, Uncle John, that'll never happen. He's right. He's right.
Well, that was
the
part
power
of the
is so
problem with
crazy.
giving
we have
nuclear
that
power
now?
to other countries.
That
right?
sounds like a
that was the
nuclear
problem
weapon,
that
not
happened with
nuclear
India
power. That's a
and
different thing.
Pakistan.
What
They
the
got
heck?
nuclear power, and then they were able to weaponize it.
The biggest problem in the world today is not global warming. It's nuclear warming. And we have idiots that are negotiating for us. We have a
Saying
guy
so
that
many
doesn't
things
make it
right
past
now.
4 o'clock. And it's not because of age. They ought to. I know so many guys in their late 80s, and they're better
gonna
than you.
say,
I said to one guy the other day,
if
I
this
think you're smarter than
conversation
you were
was with
25
anyone
years ago.
else,
I've known him a long time.
I would have clicked
He's
off of it
89
by
years
now.
old. He's sharp.
I am
He's-
goddamn
he's
bored
great.
right now.
Biden gives people a bad name because that's not an age. I think they say
Right.
it because
Well,
I'm
that's
3 or 4
terrifying.
years younger. I think that's why they say it. They say his age. It's not his age.
He's had
got a problem.
2 major brain
Operations.
surgeries.
Yeah, he did.
He had
Those are not good
aneurysms.
operations.
And did you see what he did today? He went running towards the camera and made some apology to Native Americans.
Who
and
did that?
He said that's why he's headed out west. Like he's off the reservation, so to speak, for lack of a better term.
It's interesting because during the debate, I was looking over. I'm saying, this is strange. It's just sort of like strange things were happening.
Yeah.
But
Well, he
it
couldn't
just-
keep it together. But do you think they knew he couldn't keep it together?
I think
Do you think
so.
that they wanted that? Is that why, like historically, that debate was
Al-Qaeda? I
earlier
think you mean
than they've been in the past,
Afghanistan.
right?
I think they wanted
probably
to. Well, there's
send a lot more
of
money
theories.
to
a lot of people
Israel.
said, do the debate now and we'll
Stop
get him
doing
out.
Right.
I think that maybe could be.
Well, that is what happened.
But that's
so
what happened.
it's logical
I think they
to
also
assume that
said,
that's what they
do the
wanted.
debate now and get it over with.
Right.
I don't think anybody thought he was going to get out. Really, I don't
didn't
think
make
that-
any sense.
The debate got
No,
him out,
that's
but I think
that's
it's very
not
untrue.
true.
Look,
Flix capacitor.
have a bad debate.
That was claimed
His
by
numbers
60
went
Minutes,
down.
but there's no evidence
But
of
I
it,
think she's
and
not
the
doing
claims
very
that they
well
made
right
were
now.
denied
I
by the
think she
Trump
looks-
team. So we don't
Well,
know
I
what's
get to that,
true,
too, because
but
it's hard to
that
know.
is
Like, the whole
absolutely
poll
not
thing
a
is very
confirmed
bizarre
fact.
for most people because most people don't answer polls. So they read the polls. And they're
Were
like,
you
who's
ever
getting
called
polled? I've
from
never
a
been
poll?
polled.
I was
If I
never
did, I'd
called-
hang up.
I was never called by a poll
If
system.
I did, I wouldn't answer. I'm busy.
You know how
No,
poll?
okay, so I'm going to pause it again. No, this is not true, Flix capacitor. You can Google this easily. I have already several times said things that Trump has said that are not true, but you're not wrong. You're not right here. And they were going to fact check him. No, what they were going to do was live fact check him. They were going to live fact check him, which is something that they didn't do ever before. And it's not something they did with Kamala Harris, who also lies quite a bit. So yeah, look, you're allowed to be here, but you're wrong here. Anyone can Google it. I'm not going to confirm it myself on live. I already have, I know. So you're wrong. That's fine. You can stay in here. But if you're bothering other people, Minoans, who's been here a long time, is asking me to block you. I don't want to do that, but I will if, yeah, we'll just keep going.
Polls are done. I'm going to get myself
Please.
in trouble. But so I really don't believe too much in him.
Yeah.
So,
Well, 2016.
And
taught a lot
I've
of people
seen
about
the
being
interviews
effective.
myself
Well, they were very
based on
impressive.
what
Yeah, I
they
thought
said
I was
last
doing well.
time on
I'd
60
go to a
Minutes, how they
place and I'd
treated
have
him.
40,000 people. Hillary would go, they have 500 people, and they tell me I'm going to lose.
I saw it
said, why am I
confirmed
gonna
it
lose?
with
I
my
had
own
40,000 people. She had 200 people. But, I have a theory. These pollsters, they charge you a lot of money, too. They charge you $500,000 to do some stupid poll, and they interview like 251 people. I don't think they interview them in many cases. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
You think it's bullshit?
No, I think they sit there, they make a deal, they get $500,000, and they say,
Yeah,
Trump's
60
winning
Minutes also
51 to
hid
49. They
the.
announce it, and everybody
They didn't
says,
even want to
"Oh,
talk about the
do you understand?
Hunter
I-
Biden
yeah.
laptop.
I
So
don't,
you
I
think
don't
it's-
think
Which is,
they.
of course, later
I
confirmed to
think
be
in a
true.
lot. Look, I'm a very common sense person. I think that they probably don't always poll. Some of them probably never poll. What's the difference between 49 to 51 and 47 and a half?
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of the population. I don't think it's representative of the overall population. I just don't think
I don't
it
know
is.
of one person in my whole life that ever got called by a pollster.
Exactly. That's my point. So here's my question.
But I shouldn't say that because I'm doing really well in the polls.
But I
now.
think that's
So this week I happen to believe in a verse. I only believe them if they're good. No, I like them this month. But no, I honestly believe that there's probably a lot of fraud. I had a poll, Washington Post, ABC, in the Hillary thing on Wisconsin. They had me down 17 points the day before the election.
Yep.
I knew it was wrong because I had a rally. I had 29,000 people at a
was-
racetrack, and it was like 0
Called
degrees.
it the
Wisconsin.
hallmarks of Russian
And they had me
misinformation. It
down
never was.
17 points. In other words, you had no chance. And I won. And I called up my pollster, good guy, good guy. And I believe he's legitimate. And, and some of them are, and some of them aren't. I said, tell me, why did they have me down so much? I mean, nobody's going to believe them the next time. They said they don't care. When you're down 17 points, people are going to stay home. They're not going to vote.
right.
Because they're going to say, I love Trump, but I'm not
Hey,
going to waste my time. It's cold
Look,
out.
man, just drop it.
I
It's
said,
not what
"But
we're here
why
to
don't
do
they
right
make it
now.
4
Talk
or
about the
5?
thing.
He said, at 4 or 5, they're going to go and vote. At
Live
17,
fact
they're
checking.
not going
I've
to
seen it myself.
So
Other
Think
people
of it. I
can
was
Google
7.
it.
This is the Washington
I've
Post
seen the
ABC poll.
information.
I was down 17 points in Wisconsin, and I won. It's crooked stuff.
There's a lot of crooked stuff, and I wanted to talk about that too because one of the things that people
Yeah, I've never been called by
talk
a
about
pollster.
with you
I get
is
harassed
the
by the
denial
Democrats.
of the results.
I have
think JD
hundreds
Vance did a
of
brilliant
text
job the other day
messages
when he was
from the
being
Democrats over
interviewed,
the last few
and
years.
they asked him,
It's
"Did
insane.
Trump lose the 2020 election?" And he turned it around and said, "Was there legitimate election interference in suppressing the Hunter Biden
No, I mean, I'm
story on
Blake, so I'm
social
just going to
media?"
block you if you
And
keep bringing it up.
Was that a
we're
concerted
doing here.
effort?
Well, they say
to
it made
hide-
10-point difference, and I lost by one tenth of a point.
Well, it is.
They
it's-
say it was 22,000 votes. But look, it was much more than that. And I appreciate J.D. Vance saying that. And by the way, I think he was a great pick.
Bye, Flex.
You like J.D. as a
I
pick?
like him a lot. Yeah.
You're allowed to say that. As,
No, I do. I like him
no,
a lot.
I think he's good.
I think he's a brilliant
That is
guy.
the
and
second
I think
person who
his
has ever been
ability
banned
to talk like a normal human being. You did
from
my friend
the
Theo Vaughn's
Illegitimate
podcast,
Scholar
and he
YouTube
just
channel.
did it.
How did he
Two,
do
He
it?
did
It's a
great.
very small club,
he
unlike
just
Flynn
talks
Is that
Dibble.
like
why
a
you
normal
called me
human
to
being.
do this? Is that why you called me to do this?
No, we were.
Holy cow.
I was.
He was a nice
Once they
guy.
shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing.
Timing's
I think
good.
timing's perfect. Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
What do we say? What do you
Yes.
got there?
So-
Oh, what's up, Frenchie? How you doing, man? Yeah, I'm playing as France,
See,
taking over
zicked
England
right
here.
there.
It healed
soon.
up pretty fucking good.
Well, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's little. It's not like some of the wrestlers, some of the UFC fighters.
No, you didn't
It's
get
a little bit.
cauliflower
No,
ear.
no. It was sort of like a top shot.
A
The
top
point of the
shot.
bullet was a
Boy.
little of the ass, but you see the things take it off a little bit, but it makes me a tougher guy. You know the fighters. The fighters love their. Bo Nickel, he's a great fighter.
Yeah, I love Bo Nickel.
How's he going to do? I think he's
He's
terrific.
great. He's a fantastic
He
fighter.
was almost like undefeated in college.
He's a fantastic wrestler and one of the best mixed martial
When
artists.
is he fighting again?
He's fighting in Madison Square Garden in November.
Oh, that's going to be after the election.
Yep.
So I'll either go as president or I'll be depressed and I won't bother going. I think they're having a
Or in
fight right
jail.
now.
One of the things that was fascinating also was the denial of the election results is a pretty common thing. Hillary Clinton famously denied that
Yeah.
she called you an illegitimate president, and she said that Russia put you in place.
Even though she conceded.
yes,
She conceded the night of the election because she was beaten.
Yes, and it was a thing that was pretty common for people, especially Democrats, to deny the elections. There's been many of them: the Bush administration, the dangling Chads, all that stuff.
Well, look at these guys in Congress. All these sleazebags in Congress that are Democrats, they're still denying 2016. But now they don't so much because, they try and pin it on me. You don't hear them say,
But here's my
they
point.
denied it right up until the end.
My point is, this idea of election fraud is a forbidden topic. And
Right.
you get labeled an election denier. It's like being labeled an anti-vaxxer if you question some of the health consequences that people have had from the COVID-19 shots. Oh my God, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you say, and what I say publicly, and I've said this a lot, it's not 0%. So if you ask me what is the amount of
Yeah, how
election
could it
fraud in
be?
this country, is it 0%? No one thinks it's 0%. I've never met one person,
ridiculous to think it's
not a
0%.
super liberal, progressive, far left person or a right wing conservative. Not one person thinks it's 0%. They think when you have human beings, and also you have a lot of weirdness that was going on during the 2020 elections, particularly with mail-in ballots.
And you had legislatures that had to approve, and they didn't approve, and they went out and did it anyway. And you had old-fashioned ballot screwing. I mean, you had you have people going up and dropping in phony votes. You had unsigned ballots, et cetera, et cetera.
There's certain people that think that they have, and there's the rhetoric is also that.
Dude,
you're
I love
Hitler,
how he's like interrupting
and
Trump.
that
that's
in order
Trump's
to
not used to
stop
this.
Hitler, you have to do whatever it takes.
That was okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, you're hearing this now. Kamala compared you to, said your love of Hitler yesterday.
Kamala's a very low IQ person. She's a very low IQ. I'm for taking tests too. I think anybody that runs for president they should give them tests. And it's not an age thing. It's not based. If you look back on history, 70s and 80s, some of your greatest leaders in the world history,
that's
long
so
time
funny.
world history,
A low IQ.
they were in their 70s and their 80s. But I think you should take cognitive tests. I think they say it's unconstitutional. But I
That's
think
ridiculous.
I think Kamala should have a test because there's something missing. There's something wrong with her.
Well, I think it's pressure. I think the pressure and the scrutiny, you've been a celebrity for a long time and you understand what this is like. But for someone who's in her late 40s, who becomes the vice president, who runs for president, becomes the vice president, and then all of a sudden the weight of the world is on your shoulders and there's all these people paying attention.
Yeah,
a lot of people
I agree
clam
with you,
up.
Minoan.
But you either have it or you don't.
It's just it's
Correct.
not
Look,
something Trump is used to.
This is
right?
an interview. We've covered a lot of territory, right? And
Cocaine.
it's fine.
Kamala's
I
on
don't care.
cocaine? I don't
I
think so.
want to. I think it's much more interesting. To do an interview with Anderson Cooper, a softball, crazy softball
what's up,
interview.
Chase? How you
She
doing,
took
brother?
2 days off
Chase
and
is
she
one of my
studied
friends
and
from high
studied
school,
all day
man. One of
long,
my
and then she
friends for
comes
like
out with a
20
result
years.
that was a real embarrassment.
doing,
that
man?
was a really bad interview. She couldn't answer
Trump
a question.
just said that Kamala's low
and
IQ.
every question's not answered. I mean,
Yeah.
like, what would you do your first day in office? Okay.
I mean, he's not really
I'll
a
build
politician,
a wall. I
right?
won't build
mean,
a wall. There's 100
Yeah.
things you can say. Just say
Right.
anything, right? There's something off with her.
Well, I also
We're dealing,
think,
Joe. We're dealing
Look,
with the smartest people.
I'm not
They hate
someone
when
that
I
thinks
say,
that
when
Kamala's
when I
dumb.
called President Xi,
I don't know
they
about
said,
low IQ.
He called
Yeah,
President
dude,
Xi
he
brilliant.
really
Well, he's a
is.
brilliant guy. He controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. I mean,
There's
he's
no
a
way
brilliant
Kamala's
guy, whether you
IQ is
like it
under
or not.
100.
And they go crazy.
right,
say,
it doesn't mean he's
oh,
not
man.
evil or it doesn't mean he's not
Yeah, of course not.
dangerous.
But actually, we have evil people in our country.
Yes.
If you have a smart president, he can deal with Russia. He can deal with all of it.
Okay, this isn't based on intelligence.
Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
How would you have
They
stopped it?
didn't.
Automatic, 2 things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in.
And
I
look,
used to talk
Putin
to him all the
invaded
time.
Crimea
You're not going
during
in.
Obama's
I
presidency.
can't tell you what I told him because I think it would be inappropriate. But someday he'll tell you. But he would have never gone in. But
Yeah,
you know why
Kamala's
else he
IQ
wouldn't
is
have gone in?
69.
Oil prices at $40 a barrel wouldn't have allowed him, wouldn't have given him the money to prosecute
No,
that war.
she's no
Wouldn't
Flynn
have given
Dibble.
him the
Thank you,
money.
Max.
I said it with President. I was with President Xi. I said it was almost the
Average
same
is pretty dumb. Yeah, but it's not low IQ, right?
With Vladimir, it was Moscow. With President Xi, it was
I guess it
Beijing.
depends on what you mean by it.
It was
but
almost the exact same conversation. I said, don't do it. He would have never done it. The day I left, they flew 28 bombers over the middle of Taiwan. 28 bombers. And it's the apple of his eye. And the
Yes,
same thing with Russia.
it doesn't mean nothing.
It's the apple.
A lot of
Ukraine
people
is the
don't know this,
apple
but
of his
yes,
eye. I used to talk
absolutely.
to him.
There
I had
was-
a very good relationship
This is why
with him. He
Putin
wouldn't have
invaded.
done
It's
it. He would have
pretty
never done
confirmed.
it. But he also
that
wouldn't have
the
done
Ukrainian
it because of
government
the,
and
you know,
Azov,
one of
which
the
is
reasons
eventually
that
brought in.
What happened is, number one, he doesn't respect Biden at all, not even a little bit. And who the hell would? But he doesn't respect him. But when he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled. Number one, you take the
Azov was
soldiers out
doing that.
last, not first. Okay, that was their
Russian
big mistake.
minorities in eastern
and we
Ukraine.
had that thing charted out, and they weren't obeying us. They weren't. Abdul is the head of the Taliban. Boom, boom. He had to do all these
We're
things.
pro-Taliban on
Some
this
he
podcast.
didn't do. I said, nope, you're not doing. You got to do them all. This guy took. He immediately took all. He left the equipment behind. 13 soldiers dead, but he took everybody out. He took his soldiers out before. A child would know. That's where Milley was so stupid. He was such a stupid guy.
Oh, Milley's a
Milley.
traitor, dude. He's
Okay,
the guy that called
those
the
generals
Chinese
should have all been
general.
fired. The people that were involved with Afghanistan should have all been fired. Then
I
they'd be
agree.
writing books about him, how stupid he was and bad he was. But you take your soldiers out last. I had a big rally, and I saw a child in the front row about a year and a half ago, and I called the
I'm
child
playing
up. I said,
France
"Do you mind if
because
borrow your
I wanted to
child?"
attack England,
Oh, yes,
and they start with a
please.
lot
And
of
they came up,
vassals.
kids
Also, I like
I gave them
the
quick
French
details,
kingdom.
You know, I said, we want
historically.
to get out of this place.
Most of my history is from
and
this
we have
era.
this, and we have this, and we have the equipment. I gave him a little thing. I said, do you take your soldiers out first or last after everything's done? You take them out last, sir.
Yeah,
a child
obviously.
would know that. We took our soldiers out first.
What
And-
was
and we
your
left,
plan?
And we left Bagram.
Well, not only that, we
Bagram.
left billions of dollars worth of equipment and military vehicles
The
that they use
best-
for parades now.
The best equipment, to embarrass us,
embarrassing,
the
dude.
best equipment in the world.
The
We left-
Taliban parade where they've got tanks rolling down the streets
Yeah.
and Blackhawks
Yeah.
flying is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
We
the
left
fact that we left
the
all that
best
stuff there.
equipment in the
Yeah.
world behind.
What would you have
Brand-
done differently?
It was public knowledge
Well,
that
number
Ukraine
one,
was
we would have
completely
taken it out.
corrupt
Just
years
so you
ago.
just go back a little bit further.
And very likely
I had
that
a
they
couple
did
of
the coup. The
conversations with
CIA
them.
or American intelligence
And from the
did that
time I had
coup.
those conversations, because they were shooting our
To
soldiers,
install the
with the
current
sniper
guy.
stuff.
Who knows?
They were
Maybe that's
shooting.
not
They
true.
were shooting
But
a lot of them. They were shooting a lot with Obama, much less with me, but they were shooting them. And I said, get this guy on the phone. The press went nuts when they heard this. I had a great conversation with him. It was a tough conversation. 18 months later, there wasn't one
coalition
soldier
will
that
not
was
fire.
ever shot at. And even Biden admitted it in a moment of stupidity because he shouldn't admit it. His people went nuts. He said, yeah, well, I will admit, no soldier. We didn't have a soldier killed in 18 months in Afghanistan. Not one soldier was killed because he understood what was going to happen if that happened. I didn't have one soldier. Then when I left, after having gotten more votes than any sitting president in the history of the country and much more votes than I got in 2016, when I left, they started shooting our soldiers. But more
yeah,
importantly, what
that
they
is
did
what
is
happened.
they did that whole thing with, leaving. He shouldn't have left, number one, should have left from Bagram, because Bagram's this massive base.
Yeah, they
It's got
abandoned
tremendous
Bagram.
acreage around it, tremendous. It's a very big, it was built many years ago. And part of the reason you wouldn't have taken that is because it goes to China. 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear missiles, you should have never left Bagram.
Oh,
Number one, they
crap.
should have left from
That is some
Bagram.
information I did not
They should have
know.
left last. They should have
Pull
got,
up a
we have
map.
Americans that are still there. They should have taken all their equipment out. Everything, every plane, every screw should have been taken out. Every tent.
A few hours ago,
I
man, but I
said
guess
that-
the
that's when I
Spotify
realized
took
that
the
Milley was
episode
a
down,
dummy.
so
I
they
said,
unlisted it on
We're
YouTube, but you
leaving,
can still
but
see
I
it
wanna
because it's
get
just
everything
unlisted,
out.
not
Sir,
private.
it's cheaper to leave it. I said, what
It's
do you mean leave
cheaper
it?
to leave
Yeah, he
it.
That
said
doesn't
it's
make
cheaper
any
to
sense.
leave
I
it.
know
That
they
was
try to
cheaper.
say that.
Cheaper. He said it's
Not a
cheaper.
chance.
Sir,
Not more dangerous.
he just said cheaper.
Okay, but that's clearly
I
more
said,
than
I
an
want
hour
every
from
plane.
China.
I want every
Like,
tank. I want the goggles. They have night goggles. They have all this stuff that these guys now have. He said, sir,
They didn't bring the
it's
night
cheaper to
goggles.
get out and leave it. I said, so you think
That
it's
doesn't make
cheaper to
any
leave a
sense, dude.
$150 million brand new airplane in there than it is to fly it out with a tank of jet fuel and put it in Pakistan or just fly it directly back? It's cheaper to leave. I said, this guy's nuts. I'm telling you, he was so
I understand
stupid.
if
He was
leaving
so
the tanks
unwise. He was like an unwise
It was too expensive,
man.
but the night
And
vision
there were a
goggles
number
are
of
very easy to move.
But I defeated ISIS with the greatest generals.
Okay,
had
I
a
don't know what he
guy
was.
who
He said an
so
hour
great.
from China.
I
That doesn't make
flew
any sense.
to Iraq.
Is he talking about
And I met
Pakistan?
the real generals, not these idiots that we deal with. And
Yeah. What a
we
captain.
knocked out, I defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. They said it would take
Is he
5
referring
years.
to
I
like a
did it in
Chinese
matter
base
of a
in
few-
Pakistan? Is that a thing?
Literally
Because
a few
China's way over
weeks.
here.
And we hit them hard.
Some
And
of
he
this
said,
stuff is.
So we're going to hit them here. We're going to hit them there. We're going to hit them here, there.
This
And I
border is
said,
not
"This
hard,
guy's
but
great.
most
I
of it's
like this
between
guy."
Pakistan and India,
I was
not
told it
between
would take
China.
5
This
years.
part, China.
That's why I went. I said, how could it take 5 years? We have
Right.
brand new
And this is the
fighters. We
true.
have the
You
best
blow it
planes,
up.
The best
You don't
weapons,
leave
the
it for
best
them.
guns, the best bombs. How could it possibly take that long? And I flew and left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew I was going. I got on Air Force One and we started flying. And when we reached about half an hour away from Iraq, that was where the airport was, big airport.
Big
about a half
airport,
an
the
hour
biggest
away,
airport,
they said,
huge.
"Sir, I'm sorry, you'll have to turn off all your lights." Why? We're getting close to our site, our land. I said, "You mean we spent $8 trillion and we can't leave the lights?" So think of this: 20 years, $8 trillion, and we can't leave the lights on in a plane.
It's an hour by
I said,
hypersonic.
"That's
Oh,
okay. Turn the lights on." I'm not going to fight
okay.
it. That's one.
This
I don't
is
know if you're
because it's too
joking, but
dangerous?
Yeah,
that
too
makes
dangerous
sense.
because they
Yeah.
see the light up in the
They'll
air
shoot
and they'll,
at it.
they'll shoot at it, you know. So
I was thinking like an hour
I
drive.
said,
That doesn't
"Turn
make
the
any
lights
sense.
off."
Obviously,
And
it's
they
an
said,
hour
"Sir, we'll
flight.
also pull your shades if that's okay." I said, "That's okay." The plane was pitch black, all the lights outside. You know, the blinking,
Obviously,
all
it's an
the
hour
blinking
flight
reds.
because that's
They
what
were
would be
all turned
relevant.
off. And I like to sit
I don't
with
know why.
pilots a lot of times, and these guys are specimens. I always say they're better looking than Tom Cruise, okay? And they're even taller, like perfect
Tom
specimens.
Cruise is short,
These
for those
guys,
who
like
don't know.
for a fighter, you know, you have some
That's
guys
the
that are
thing.
perfect specimens. These
Right.
guys, and you know, they picked the best pilots in the Air Force, United States Air Force, to fly Air Force One. And I get
Moments
up there,
away by transporter base.
and
Sci-fi,
I'm sitting-
love
and,
it.
And I'm feeling my way up. You know, it's up high because 747, so you go through the stairs. But I sort of knew my way up. There wasn't a light in the plane. I'm saying, can you imagine? We spent trillions of dollars, and we're trying to fly in blind. But I got into the plane. The cockpit is dark black, little tiny light. You could see the pilot. A perfect-looking human being. His co-pilot, everybody was
Perfect-looking
perfect. They were all
human
like
being.
movie stars. You know, it's like I could have cast a movie with these guys and nobody would believe it because they were too good-looking. So I said,
Tropic
"How we
Thunder
doing?"
was a great
Sure,
movie.
we'll be landing in 10 minutes. And I
We used to
look
be a proper
outside.
country.
There's not a light, and I'm saying, you know, I've landed a lot of planes. I
No one
and you see
subscribe.
like little
Not
lights
again.
at least. There's nothing. It's just pure desert. And I said, "Okay, Captain, good, but I'm looking." Now you've been in many planes where it has the computer sign saying 1,000 feet, goes 1,900, 800. It's a computer voice, but it sounds like, but it's an incredible voice. 700. I say, "Captain, are we okay?" Are we okay, Captain? There's no lights. And I'm looking, you know, normally when you land a plane, because I sit with pilots a lot, I think it's great. I think it's a great profession, everything. It's incredible. They're incredible. These machines are incredible. He said, "Sir, we're fine. No problem, sir." I said, you know, I'm going, "I don't see the lights up there, Captain. Sure, we're okay." You know. So, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little
lights
bit. You
are
know,
how you know it
problem with
works.
exaggerating, they'll tell the story. They'll say, "Trump was a coward." So I'm sitting with him. He
Who
goes,
said that?
500 foot. And I'm telling you, there wasn't a light on the runway, nothing. And we're going in. "You okay, Captain? Everything good?" "Yes, sir. No problem. We'll be down in about 1 minute, sir." And I'm telling you, Joe, you know, there's always a
That
light.
sounds terrifying.
There's not a little pin. And all of a sudden, psh, and you hear, "Blah, blah," perfect landing like glass. That's how good. I mean, these guys, between the equipment and
Yeah.
it's genius.
I
It's
agree.
pure-
This
it
is
was so
not
dark,
an
you
enthralling
couldn't see
conversation
a
at all.
thing. There was no runway.
This is
You
crazy.
wouldn't know
Like-
where the hell you are. You're in the middle of a desert. And then I got out of the plane. I said, "Thank you, Captain. That's a great job." And then I got out of the plane and I'm going down and I see a general and another general. And I see a staff sergeant, a drill sergeant, and a various
A drill
guys.
sergeant?
all
He does
central
not know what these
casting.
things are.
Central casting. They said, "Sir, would you like to rest?" I said, "I don't want to rest. I want to figure out what the hell are we doing with ISIS. I'm hearing we can't, it's going to take years." "No, sir, we can do it very quickly, sir." And anyway, we go into the room. We go in.
In
I mean,
English,
Biden
I
would have
hope your
taken a
crane
nap for 4
crashes.
days and then
All
left
right.
without a meeting.
Look, I'm going to come
So
in
we
like
go into
Michael
the room,
Collins on
and
your
they
ass in
have
a
these
second here.
guys. I say, "How long can you do it? How long?" "We can do it in a couple of weeks, sir." I said, "Wait a minute. They told me 5 years."
I mean, not you, but
"We
England
can
in the
do it
game.
in," I don't know, he gave me a number like just like in no time. I said, why haven't you done it? Because the orders came in from Washington, sir, and they would come here and tell us what to do. Don't you challenge us? We're not allowed to do that, sir. That's not the military way. They tell us what to do, and we have to respect them.
So do you think that it was incompetence why they didn't go after ISIS?
I think it's a bad system. You know, when Mattis goes there or when Milley goes there, who's stupid, and they tell these guys that are actually smart what to do, and the guys that are smart are saying, we don't like what they're doing, but they're not allowed to sort of counteract. Plus, the guys that went there are arrogant. You know, they're arrogant fools. They're like stupid fools. The way they pulled out of, the way they, as an example, the way they pulled out of Afghanistan with the people falling off.
Look, he's right.
Yeah,
He's right. It's crazy he's saying it like this.
It was worse than Vietnam with the helicopters falling. It was so bad. There was no reason for it. Anyway, so we knocked them out. And, I mean, we have great military. We have great people, but not the television guys. And I rebuilt the military, and then they gave a chunk of it. Now, I have to tell you, as much as it is, it's a tiny little piece, believe it or not. We have an unbelievable. I rebuilt the military. I rebuilt our nuclear. And in a way, I hated to redo it, but I got to realize
I don't know what he means by
how
that.
powerful that nuclear is, Joe. One bomb, Israel is gone, but forget. One bomb could take out the entire East Coast.
I don't think
it's so bad.
Rebuilt
and
the
I
military.
Watched these poor fools.
Yeah, good night,
talking
Minoan.
about
Good
our
time,
oceans will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 500 years.
Oh, no.
We have
God
people,
forbid.
we have countries. Right now you have 5 countries. And don't underestimate if you take a look at North Korea, I was there. I mean, I was with Kim Jong. I had a great I got along great with him. You know, the press says he got along great. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a
He's
great
right.
thing. Obama
being
thought
boring,
we were
but
going to
he's
go to
right.
war with North Korea. When I met with Obama just prior to the takeover, you know, you meet, you have a sort of a ceremonial meeting. But it lasted a long time, a lot longer than it was supposed to last. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said,
Did the
North
French
Korea.
really eat snails? I don't know.
By the time I finished,
Is Frenchie still here,
had no
Medinagan?
problem with North Korea. We were really, it was a little tough at the beginning, remember?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I have a red button on my desk. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger than yours and mine works.
I liked how you called him Little Rocket Man.
I said, yeah, Little Rocket. I said, Little
Mine
Rocket
works.
Man, you're going to burn in hell. And it was a rough,
Holy crap,
Yeah.
dude.
oh, so rough that people were worried. This is crazy. And then
I do
one
remember
day,
that.
got
I
a
was
call,
worried, but it didn't
sort of
work.
like a fight.
I mean,
I got a call.
he
You know,
played
you
it
ever
well.
see one
That's what these
pounding,
people, these
then all of a sudden-
strong-arm guys respond
But
to.
I got a call, and it was from him, meaning his people. They wanted to meet.
Yeah,
They
snails are
wouldn't meet
gross.
Obama. He tried to meet. They wouldn't even talk to him about it. And I think he expected to go to war. I actually do. I believe he expected to go. And we checked their nuclear stockpile. It is substantial. I mean, I said, "Do you do anything?" I got to know him very well. I got to know him better than anybody. And I said, do you ever do anything else? Why don't you go take it easy and relax? Go to the beach. You have beautiful beach, nice beachfront property. You know, kiddingly.
They
I said,
actually
You're
do
always
have
building
that in
nuclear.
North
Just
Korea.
relax. You don't have to do it. Let's build some condos on your shoreline. They actually have gorgeous stuff. And he said, I just have to do it because I need it for my safety, etc. I got to know him very well.
He's
We
right.
had no problem with him.
In this case,
if
I mean,
you
Kim
have a smart
Jong-un,
problem, if you have a smart,
he needs a
really
deterrent.
the right
Ask Gaddafi.
president, the
Gaddafi
smart
gave up his
president,
nukes.
you're not going to have a problem. And I say it to people. We have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with
All right, well, the
the
British
enemy
guys
from
eating
within.
snails, I
And it
guess.
drives
Maybe
them
he doesn't
crazy
hate
when I
France
use that
that
term.
much.
But we have an enemy from within. We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. When you look at what's happening at our border, Joe, when you have people coming in that
The
when
army,
other
they
countries are
boy
allowed to empty their
Pronounced that
prisons
wrong.
into our
I'm gonna
country
pretend it's
with
on
murderers, we had 13,099 murderers dropped in our country over the last 3 years.
And 15,000 rapists convicted.
Rapists,
Yeah.
drug dealers, drug lords.
And that's just the ones that have been accounted
terrorists,
for.
correct. People from mental institutions.
What do you think the strategy is?
Hundreds of thousands of major criminals.
Yeah, and she was proud of it
tougher
as well.
And worse than
Not only are
anybody
we
we have.
pro-Taliban,
These
Well, and
are-
we're
here,
seeing the
we're also
consequences of it in San
pro-Gaddafi.
Antonio. They've taken over
All
apartment
over.
buildings.
At
In
least
Aurora,
I am.
Colorado,
I
they've
get it.
taken over
But-
apartment buildings. These Venezuelan gangs.
just the
Back-
beginning.
Gaddafi.
What do you think
He
the
was proven
strategy
correct.
is? You know, one of the
And now
things that
there's
they've
millions
said
of
is that
slaves in
you
Libya?
stopped a bill from
France
being
and the United
passed. But
States
didn't that
for that?
bill also include amnesty for the people that are already here?
Joe, this is years after the fact. The damage was already done.
But what was the bill?
Well,
And
the bill
what was
was
the
nothing.
problems
It
with the
allowed
bill?
2 million people in. They were going to get amnesty. It was a horrible bill. It didn't protect us at
Yeah,
all.
dude.
But we should just tell people what
She's
the
a freaking
strategy
lizard.
is. So one of the things
Well,
that's
I'll
been
tell you
very
their
their
strategy.
strategy. One of the things
Not sure
that's
which
been
one,
very
but it's one
clear
of them.
is that they've moved a large percentage of these migrants that are coming across the border illegally. They've moved them to swing states.
Yeah.
Like this
And
is
red
what's going on with
states.
Springfield, Ohio, right?
They're in
Yeah.
swing states. Well, that's not a swing state. I'm going to win Ohio by a lot. So that's not a swing. But it's called Springfield, Ohio, to be exact. And
Yeah.
Springfield, Ohio is this very nice community
Well,
of 52,000 people that just had
pretty poor community.
32,000 migrants that don't speak the
I
language.
think that's a higher number
dropped
than
into
actually
their
went in
community.
there.
You can't get into a hospital. You can't get into a school. It's gone from a beautiful little place to a horror show. And the mayor is a nice guy. And the mayor says, we're looking for interpreters. I said, no, you've got to remove them and bring them back to their country. Mostly Haitians in this case. But they speak no language. They speak no
English, I mean.
In fact,
12
even the
to
language they do
15,000
speak, I mean, they
immigrants
can't get interpreters, they can't do anything.
From
And the mayor's trying to be
September.
politically
I think you
correct.
just
They're all
made that
trying to be.
32,000
In
up.
Aurora, Colorado,
Unless someone can find that number
you
for
have
me.
the worst, probably the worst gang. MS-13 might even be, those two are the worst gangs. These are Venezuela gangs. They have taken over apartment complexes, and they're going to want to take over the whole thing. And you have a weak governor, pathetic
I've seen
governor,
those videos.
who's a radical left Democrat. He doesn't know what the hell to do. But you have it in many other communities, but they don't like to talk about it because it's bad for the community to talk about it. These people have been let in here by this imbecile. And I mean it. She's a low IQ person.
person.
Low IQ.
Right, but it's obviously not just her. There's a strategy that's
Well,
involved in letting these
she
people
was in
in.
charge of the border.
Well, she's in charge of the border, but they also they utilize
Well, that's a good
that
point.
app.
But I think with
The app
Springfield,
that
Ohio,
used to
and
be
the
used, it used to be
Haitians,
used.
it was
I
very
think
much an
essentially,
official
wasn't it for
thing with the
shipping?
government. So I'm not
Wasn't
sure.
it when people were in this country?
It was used for shipping, and
20,000?
now it's used
I'd like to see where the
deal
32,000
with the
number comes from.
cartels. The cartel, heads of the cartel,
Sounds like you just
rich
pulled it out
people,
of his
by the way.
ass,
These
which,
are
like,
loaded.
you
These
know.
people have so much money. They would call up, think of this, they call up the app, and the app tells them where they should take their load of illegal migrants from the Congo. We have a lot from the Congo, prisons in the Congo.
I've never heard.
I made a
this.
little bit of a sarcastic joke. A man named Dana White, who you love, who I love. I assume you love him.
Love that dude.
I think he's in a class by him.
He's probably the reason why you're here.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
He's one of
Looks
the big
like
ones.
we are.
He is the greatest guy.
I love him
I
to
always
death.
say nobody's indispensable. Everybody can be replaced. Maybe you can't be. You might not be.
Well, maybe this
But
isn't true.
Dana White,
I don't know
truly,
why
I
you
don't think-
trust the
the
Congolese
things
government,
he sold
but
it for
it
$4
looks like we
billion.
do
I said,
have.
What the
these
hell?
immigrants
Who the
coming in
hell
from
is
the
going to pay
Congo.
$4 billion? And they made like a great deal. I mean,
it's worth a
because
lot
of
more
him.
than that now.
Take him
Yeah.
out. I think it's a whole different.
So it
No,
was a
he's the
government
best-
official
and
thing.
he's also
promoter of
the
all time.
greatest guy. He spoke
He
at
did.
the
Tyler
whole thing
Oliviera's
with, I had just
stream
been
on-
shot.
on
and
here.
He got up and he spoke so better than anybody. I mean, who would be better to introduce you? I asked of all the people, and I know there's biggest people in the world, and they all would have loved to have done it. I said, Dana, would you do it? It was interesting. He was away.
Oh, this is the app he was
And
talking
he said to the
about.
people that, one of my guys called, he said, I won't be able to do it. I just left with my wife and family. I won't."
Whoa.
I said, He said, no, yeah. I was a little surprised, even though I knew he was very far away. He was in some place, and he deserved it with his family, the whole thing. And then I said, all right, so we're looking who we're going to get. And all of a sudden
Okay.
she comes in. Sir Dana White just said he's going to do it, and he's coming back in tonight. He's taking it.
Whoa.
The guy is just an incredible guy, and he's like a tough champion, but loyal. Yeah, he's got to be one of your favorite people. He's one of my
I
favorite
love him
people.
to death. I've
Yeah.
been friends with him for 23 years. I love him.
So
to death.
would you have, because what you're doing here is incredible. I mean, everybody tells me. All I know is today I'm going, you're in.
All right, guys. What I need to do now, we're going to keep going. We are going to keep going, but I need to go use the bathroom and go see if I can scrounge up some Zins. So I will be back. Should be less than 5 minutes, and I will be right back. Got unmuted. All right. Where are my shoes? Has Zins in it. Thank the Lord. I don't have to go out to the gas station, which I wouldn't have stopped the stream to do. I'm not that addicted. Alrighty, let's get back to it.
Joe Rogan thing. People were telling me, like I say, how the hell do you know that? But it's sort of what you've done here is amazing. Where would you be if you didn't do the UFC stuff? Would you have this show? Do you think?
Yeah, I would still be doing it for sure. Yeah.
Would
I
it
mean, I
be
was
at the
doing it
same? Would it be at the same level?
I don't know.
But you
At
would
Crabs,
have.
you should
It's
get
hard
rid
to
of them.
know.
Can't you
I
just get
think
rid of your pubic
you know
hair?
one of the things that works for this show, I guess, is that I'm involved in so many different things. You know, stand-up comedy, UFC, and all the interests that I have that lead to the podcast.
Will you always want to do you? First of all, you love UFC.
I love it. Yeah.
You love the fights. I mean, I watch
yeah.
you. You are loving it. They could pay you nothing. It'd be very.
They didn't pay me anything for the first like 13 shows. I did it for free because they were hemorrhaging money. And I became friends with Dana, and my
really worked
my
out for him.
position was, you're going to give me the best seat in the house. I get to sit cage side for the fights. I'm like, I'll do it, and I wanted to help. I was like, I think these are the guys that we had always hoped for.
Oh,
in the
he's an
early days of
amazing
the
guy.
sport, I started working for the company in 1997. I was before the UFC was purchased by Zuffa, which Dana worked
wow,
for.
wow.
So I was a part of the previous owners. And I only did it for a couple of years. It was just too much, and I was losing money. And it was banned from cable because of Budweiser and John
Cooked, I
McCain,
hope.
and you could only get it on
Right.
DirecTV. And,
And,
so
and then I came along and I gave him the
you
sites.
did, and he loves
And he
you for
never
that.
forgot it.
He loves you for that. He talks
You know,
about
and,
it all
and
the time.
just to interrupt
Wow.
for one second. So
Didn't even know that.
they couldn't get a site because it was too dangerous
Right.
and everybody was against it and they couldn't get licensed. And I gave him the first 2 or 3 sites.
Yep.
And they were great. And by the way, I
The
went to
best
the
sites.
first fight.
I gave him the best sites.
I said, I never saw anything like this. It was crazy. It was so good. Take the best fight you've ever seen. It was like
Yeah.
that
It
fight,
was the
right?
best fight
It
you've
was
ever
so good.
seen. I was
Then he gave
there.
it to me
So
again,
good.
And all of a sudden it
Never
caught on.
better.
But you know,
And they all said, "We love
when
you,
I
Trump.
wasn't in vogue,
Your
you know,
site's
I've
the
had
best."
you probably never had a time, but I had times when I wasn't exactly in vogue. Dana, they called him. He said, he's the greatest guy. There's nobody like him. He said, I'll never say anything bad about that guy because when I needed, because they were having a hard time at the beginning. They almost pulled the plug a couple of times, right? He said he stood up and he gave us stuff that nobody else gave us and nobody wanted anything to do. And he said, I will never. And there was a time where it would have been very popular for him to say bad stuff about me. He said the greatest stuff about
Not
me. He
the
said, you're
UFC
going to try
fan
and get
base,
me
though.
to say bad stuff about Trump. I'm never doing it.
No,
So
he's a very,
he's
very,
an
very
unusual
loyal guy.
Yeah,
Very
he's-
unusual guy.
He's
And
a fantastic guy.
a perfect guy to be at the
I think
helm
that
of something so
loyalty is
controversial
unusual.
as the UFC.
Less controversial now. I mean, so,
Well, now it's huge. Yeah. Well, this was always the thing that I would hope that it would be. I always knew that it was unbelievably entertaining, but I just didn't know if maybe I was crazy. Maybe I loved it because I've had this long history of being involved in martial arts, and maybe like other people who just think it's too violent. But
can boxing make it?
yeah, boxing's still a great sport. I love boxing.
But it seems to be so unimportant now by comparison to UFC, don't you think?
I think, well, you know, Dana is working with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're going
About
to
bringing
start
some
promoting
fights, yeah.
boxing now, and with Dana at the helm of it, I think boxing could return because the thing
would
is
hope
they
so.
want
I
to make fights
like boxing.
that other people, maybe promoters don't want to make because they want to protect their fighter. Controversial fights where it's dangerous, like you don't know this guy could lose, and so the Saudis, they're smart. They just offer a tremendous amount of money, and they're putting together
Dude, they're not
fights
smart.
that no one else can put together. They're
They
doing
just
that in
throw
boxing.
money at
If
things.
Dana's involved, he'll probably make it good.
not-
You know
doesn't
the
work.
amazing thing though, the in fighting, no UFC fighter they say has ever died, and it looks
No.
to me much more violent than boxing. Many boxers have died. Isn't it interesting?
Huh.
And Dana tells me because they take so many shots to the face.
Yes, and there's also no other options to preserve yourself, to protect yourself. So if you get hit in a UFC fight, you can clinch. You can try to take the fight to the ground. You get
Yes,
options.
yeah.
Also, you don't get allowed to get knocked down and then get back up. When you get knocked down, you're concussed. And generally, if a guy's really hurt, they can be finished on the ground and the fight's over. If it's boxing, you have 10 seconds to get up. You get up. Your head kind of clears,
Right,
but you're
right.
still in real bad trouble, and
Should
you
be
kind of
knocked
run
down
away
over.
and survive until the
That'll
bell
probably fix
rings.
a lot of
They're only
stuff in
3-minute
boxing.
rounds, and then you start again. So you're getting
Yeah.
repeated punishment to the head.
Yeah.
And then there's also the issue of guys weight cutting, which is a problem with the
Yeah.
UFC as well. But weight cutting in boxing has led to, if you look at deaths in boxing, there's very few of them in the heavyweight division. Most of the deaths in boxing are the lighter weight divisions
Wow,
because when
that's
guys
great.
dehydrate themselves to lose weight, to make weight, their brain is the last thing that gets rehydrated. Like, it's very
Good Lord.
difficult to completely hydrate your brain quickly. And you only have 24 hours between the weigh-in and the fight. And it used to be the weigh-ins were the day of the fight. Like when Boom Boom Mancini
Ooh,
had a
right.
fight with Duk Kim and
Right.
killed him in the ring, which is
Right.
one of the last ones on television that we've seen.
That's right.
That was a crazy event for people and heartbreaking, and it led to a bunch of different changes. And one of them is day before weigh-ins to allow people to rehydrate better, and the other one is they dropped it from 15 rounds down to 12.
Which, look, they should do that. I'm not the fighter, but those 15-round fights were unbelievable.
They were unbelievable.
They were
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Yeah, you go
In
back to
terms
the
of-
golden age.
Yeah, in terms of entertainment,
Oh, yeah.
those were the championship rounds. Those were the greatest fights
Those
ever.
last 3 rounds were crazy.
That was
I mean,
brutal.
it's such a war of attrition. A lot of people think even like a 5-round UFC fight. UFC is 5-minute rounds. It's so much
Tough.
energy you're burning out. And those last couple of rounds, those 5-round fights, the 4th and the 5th round, unbelievably brutal.
Who's the greatest UFC fighter? Are you allowed to say, in your opinion? It's tough for
Khabib.
you to say because you do this, but
impossible.
who do you
Khabib.
think is the greatest of the fighters?
Khabib.
There's a lot of arguments for who's the greatest of all
Khabib.
time. You know, John Jones, most people would say is the greatest of all time. Never lost. There's certainly a really good argument for
John
that.
Jones
There's
is
another
good.
argument for
Khabib.
George St. Pierre.
Khabib.
I always leave in B.J. Penn in his prime, Anderson Silva in his
Khabib.
prime. You know, Mighty Mouse. People
Khabib.
forget about Mighty Mouse because unfortunately he's a smaller guy. He's 125 pounds, flyweight champion. He's one of the greatest expressions of mixed martial arts I've ever seen. I think to this day.
And
it's probably-
Khabib? What about
Khabib's
Khabib?
fantastic. But if you looked at like accomplishments in terms of championship fights, Khabib retired 29-0, but he didn't have as
And
many world
probably never
championship
lost a
fights.
round. They say
He might have lost to Gleison Tebow. He might have lost to him.
A round?
Might have lost a round. And that was a controversial fight where people think that Gleison Tebow could have even got the decision in that fight. I'd have to go back and watch it again to make a decision. But
they're great athletes. Though.
the best athletes in the world, and
Khabib.
the most dangerous sport in terms of like I always call it high level problem solving with dire physical consequences.
Yeah, it's just brutal.
That's what fighting is.
You know, I never forget. So there was a
This is the
fighter
most boring
named
interview
James
I've ever listened
Tony.
to.
Oh yeah,
Seriously.
I love
And
James Toney.
He
Lights
fought
out.
as a very light fighter, and he
I
ended
mean,
up
this
as a
is-
heavyweight. I mean, this guy went through everything. He was
Yeah.
almost like a lightweight,
He went from middleweight all the way up to
Yeah.
heavyweight.
Trump at
yeah.
least seems
and
I've
Peter
never
Vander
seen
Holyfield
it.
is a heavyweight.
and he was a real fighter.
Oh yeah.
So James Tony, and I think it was St. George
George St. Pierre?
St. Pierre. I think it was him. Who did he fight? James Tony.
No, James Toney didn't fight George St.
He
Pierre.
fought a UFC fighter.
Yeah, Randy
who was,
Couture fought James Toney.
Was it
But
Randy
that was like an
Couture?
easy
Maybe.
fight. That was a very easy fight. Randy Couture just took him down and
It was
strangled
the
him.
most, and he's half the size, and he
What was
just
that one where the guy
once he got to the ankles, back
flying
the announcer
knee
said,
and went in
"It's
like
over."
3
Yeah,
seconds?
he
And he
ankle
put him to
picked him,
sleep.
took him down, mounted him, strangled him. It was
And
pretty
James,
quick.
he was but he was talking big because he was
TKO
much bigger. He was a
immediately.
pretty
I
big
think
guy.
James just wanted to make some money. In
You
that
think
fight.
so?
Yeah.
But I never forgot it.
I don't
It was
think he knew what
it
he
was
was doing.
over very quickly, and
Yeah.
he was lying, sleeping on the mat, and he was talking. You know, he was doing the Muhammad Ali stuff, but it didn't work out. But I remember
sold the fight.
Yeah, that was Couture probably.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
Yeah.
Couture. George never fought a boxer in an MMA fight. If he did, he would kill them.
Was he one of the greatest?
Yes, unquestionably. That's the argument. There's like a handful of guys you can make the argument is the greatest of all time. People forget about Anderson Silva in his
Khabib.
prime. He was unstoppable.
I mean,
But
Joe
that's
knows
the
better
thing
than
is,
me.
Silva.
and then there's Fedor Emelianenko,
whatever,
who
but-
fought in
Yeah,
Pride.
yeah.
In his prime, he was unstoppable. There's this.
And you have a couple now that are pretty
yes.
good.
Oh, we've got so many now. Alex Pereira.
Correct.
There's an argument that he's
So
the
good.
He's
top
looking.
pound for pound fighter in
He's
the world
looking
right
very
now.
good. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But it's like fighters can only
I'm gonna
compete
Google
at
this
that
fight
level
to
for
see what
so
I'm
many
talking
years.
about.
And so, in my opinion, you have to
was
judge
one that
them
happened
at their very
immediately.
peak. You can't judge them when they're hanging on and still fighting. You can't
Oh,
judge
it
them
was
when they're coming
Oliveira.
up. You got to judge them in that championship.
Under 30 seconds
Oh
to go.
no, that's not
In
the
that
one.
championship peak, there's a handful of guys that you would consider at the very top.
If they stopped a little bit sooner,
yeah.
some of them would have had. You know, I mean, there are a couple of that you just mentioned without mentioning names. If they stopped, they had the perfect. They were unbelievable, and then at a certain age, they start getting knocked out. Right?
Yes, it's unfortunate, but the thing is that same belief in themselves that lets them become a champion
It's okay.
makes them think that they can do it long past the time that they actually can.
Well, Anderson
Oh, it was
Silva was
Masvidal.
essentially unbeatable.
Forgot about
And
him.
then
I
he
used to be
lost
a big
to Klossman, and all
Masvidal
of a sudden
fan.
he had-
No, he
yeah.
got knocked out. He got knocked out by Chris Weidman.
Right.
Yeah.
He was kind of clowning in that
That's
fight
the
famously,
one.
and Chris Weidman had a vicious left hook, knocked him out, and then they fought a second time, and he broke his leg on Chris
Love
Weidman.
Masvidal, man.
And after that
was my
fight, he was
favorite.
kind of never the same because that leg
Boom.
break injury, which Conor McGregor
Over.
had, there's quite a few fighters that
That was a bad
Weidman
one.
actually wound up having the same injury. Ironically, there's only been like
You're never the
those.
same because you can't
Never
kick.
the same. Well, you can. Weidman is still kicking with that leg. You can, but psychologically, when you throw a kick and your leg snaps in half and you're in agony for a year, right? You have to get surgery. You have to get
Kid
bolts and
Yamamoto?
plates to keep your leg
Kid
together, and
Yamamoto?
then it takes forever for it to heal.
It
Yeah,
always
too.
amazed me
I
how
haven't
the
really
kicker.
played a lot of
I mean, you have those
before I haven't
cases,
paid
but
attention, which
the
is what I'm
kicker will
supposed to
do
be doing,
tremendous
so it's fine.
damage to somebody's leg, but their leg doesn't seem to get damaged, isn't it?
Oh,
sort
it
It
is
of
does
Yamamoto.
get
amazing?
damaged. It hurts
More than you
Yeah,
think.
but your shin, your shin gets very numb after a while. And guys that are really good kickers, they're kicking the thigh and they're kicking
this
the
is
calf,
the
they're
UFC,
kicking
though, it's
soft
MMA.
areas, and they're slamming this hard, numb shin.
Right.
Their shin gets all these like micro fractures all
Right.
over the
Obviously,
shin. It
UFC is MMA,
calcifies.
but it's not
Like these
just-
guys can kick baseball bats. You ever see them break baseball bats with their shins?
No, I've never
It's
seen
it. Guy's name
crazy. Some guys can
Miyazaki.
do 2 baseball bats. Someone will
Miyata.
hold the baseball bat and they just kick right through them.
But
'Cause their
see, I
shins
watch
almost
your
get numb.
enthusiasm now, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
They bow.
And it's
I like
like,
that. Respectful.
That's why you're good at what. That's why nobody does this better. Without the enthusiasm, forget it.
Well, it has to be
Incredible.
authentic.
Incredible.
Like that. I mean, the only reason why I do MMA commentary is because I'm very interested in it for real. I don't have to manufacture it. I'm very interested. So I
And
think
you love
that's
going
what-
in there after the fight, and they're sweating all over you. They're slopping all over you. You're
They
beautiful.
bleed on me.
Oh,
They're
what did he
bleeding.
die?
Sometimes their
Does
noses
that bother
bleed,
you a
splayed
little
on-
bit? Yeah,
No,
like
no.
2 weeks ago with the guy I never saw. I
Khalil
never saw-
Roundtree. Yeah.
More stuff came out of his nose.
Yes, it was pretty
Right.
nasty, but no, I'm very used to it. I just wanted
That's
him to
great.
be able to express himself.
You've done a great job.
Thank you.
You've
Thank
done
One
you.
of my
great
favorite fights
So,
ever was
back to you and back to what are you? And first of all, I love this
black
idea
guy,
of you teaming up
American
with Robert Kennedy,
heavyweight.
Right.
and I love this "Make America Healthy Again"
My balls was
idea
hot.
because
Beat
there
that
are
Russian
chemicals
dude.
and ingredients in our food that
was
are
losing the
illegal
whole
in
fight,
other
would've
countries
lost in the
because
end
they've
of the
been
fifth
shown to
round,
be toxic.
third round, I
There's
think, actually, 'cause it was
pesticides
the
and
last round, but it was
herbicides,
a
and there's a
co-main
lot
round.
of shit that's been sprayed on our food that
Knocked
really
him
is
out.
unnecessary.
TKO.
And there's a lot of health consequences
Love
that people
that.
are suffering from a lot of these things.
I
And
brought this chart for you.
At the beginning of the
Because
fight,
I
he
had a
said,
feeling you'd
they
be
called
asking-
me, you got to
Thank
knock
you.
Look at
this
this
Russian
chart.
motherfucker out. It
These
was
are
awesome.
healthier countries. Look where the United States is. I'm going to send this to RFK Jr. Look
so
at that.
this is
He showed
well,
a piece of paper, but
something
you can't see
along
it,
the.
so
I
I'm
was
not
actually
gonna put
talking
it
to
on
RFK
screen.
today, and he told
Unless
me
they
that
share it.
more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military
That's been
because of
true
their
for
health.
years. That's an old
I
statistic.
could see
Yeah,
it.
Derek
That's
a lot
Lewis,
of
crazy.
it's
thank
a
you.
lot of it's
So
obesity.
here's
I don't
the
know if he
life
still fights, but
expectancy
he was a year or two
versus
ago.
health expenditure.
Same chart.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
USA.
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Jamie's
Whoa.
the best.
He's very good.
He's the best.
But
So-
no, but look at that. Look
Look
what
at
the
the
USA
USA.
is.
Not good. And
they
that's our
spend all that
food.
money.
That's our diet. That's sedentary lifestyle.
Look
that's
how
our diet. That's the
bad that
chemicals we
is.
ingest. That's what that is.
But RFK is going
I'm
to
gonna
be
pull
very,
up a
you
bigger
know,
version.
I think he's a great guy. I
I
think
love
he's
the
great.
fact that you guys teamed up.
Yeah, it's
And
a
are you
good
guys
combination.
completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental, because he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think
Just
it's
keep him out of
to
that.
fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. You can do whatever you want, but I got to be a little
Yo,
bit
this
careful
is
with
crazy,
the liquid
man.
gold.
I understand. But
That's
listen, there's plenty of good
embarrassing.
work that could be done if you focus on health.
Here's
So,
the one that my all-time favorite.
No
though.
What is
way.
that?
See the arrow right here? That's what I left.
do
The
you
day I
have
left.
anyone that is
This
pressuring
interview
you
has
to
gotten
not work with
interesting
him?
now.
Have there been
To
people
not
that
work
are
with
reaching
who? To not-
RFK Jr.?
Yes.
Yes, I would imagine. Because
I would
financially,
say
he could put a dent.
I would say that
Yeah, Kennedy does
And,
make the
you know,
election
the-
more interesting. I'm a
I think
Kennedy
in many ways they've done
fan.
a good job. In many ways they've done a bad job. But I would say that the big pharma,
In the primaries,
wasn't
I'm
thrilled
still a
when they
big
heard that,
Vivek fan.
I have a relate. I've actually always gotten along very well
Probably a
with him. I've
bigger
known
fan
him
of
a long
Vivek
time.
than of Trump.
He's a
More
different
of a
kind of a guy.
begrudging
He's very
Trump
smart,
guy.
great guy. And he's very sincere about this. I mean, he really is, he thinks we spend a fortune on pesticides and all this stuff, and then you end up with that chart is a terrible chart, the one previous. It's such a bad chart when you look at where we are compared to other countries that don't spend 10 cents.
Right.
So, and you save
Yeah.
a lot of money. But yeah, I've had some people that aren't exactly thrilled. You can imagine, right?
Sure.
It's a good question, actually.
Well, certainly if there have
it doesn't
been
affect me.
some pharmaceutical drugs that have been prescribed that have negative consequences that these people have been profiting off of, and then you have a guy like RFK Jr. who spends an
Yeah,
enormous
Vivek's
amount of
the
time
best, man.
highlighting those things. You could say how they've been
Right.
very reluctant to have you support him.
I would say
I
that's
love
an
seeing him with
understatement.
Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk.
So what do you
I don't
do
really like
to
Charlie Kirk.
stop that
Well,
from
listen,
getting
I
in the
like
way?
Vivek.
Well,
I'll watch it
look,
when he's on.
They've come up with some amazing things. I mean, I don't know how you feel. I know you're against certain vaccines, but like the polio vaccine, people had polio.
Trump
it
needs
was
to
like a
shut
disaster.
up.
And they came up, Dr. Salk, and he came up with a vaccine, and there's no polio. Now, very interesting. There hasn't been polio, but now in the Gaza Strip, can you believe that? Have you heard that? There's been a big strain of polio coming out in the Gaza Strip.
Is it vaccine-derived polio? Because there's a strain of polio that comes directly from the vaccine. Because unfortunately, sometimes when
I
you
don't
vaccinate
know.
people for polio, you
Oh, I
actually
see.
give them
See, I
polio.
haven't heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
an
all
old
I can do is I
style of
sit
vaccine.
down
I think
and
it's
I
like an
listen to him,
inoculation.
and I
where
would
they
give it
really give
total.
you a live
I would
form.
love him to be right, because if he's right, it's a lot less expensive, generally
There's
speaking.
two things that people point to when they point to the dangers of the pharmaceutical drug industry. One thing is when pharmaceutical drugs were allowed to advertise on television.
Yeah, that's
We're only
wrong.
one of 2 countries in the
The other one's
world
New
that allow
Zealand, which
pharmaceutical
is not a
drugs
real
to
country.
advertise on TV.
Bunch of
The other
corporations
one's
on
New
an
Zealand,
island.
but they're more restricted than we
islands.
are.
But,
People
but
are worried,
those ads, when you hear take a certain drug,
and then you hear all
and
the
then you say
consequences.
it causes cancer and
Yeah.
baldness. We don't like baldness.
Suicidal
and this
ideation.
and that and
Yeah.
eyesight, and you can lose your vision.
Yeah.
And I actually asked one of these guys, I would never take it. I mean, because there's things that are so bad. They go through a whole list. I guess they save some liability, but man, I said, does that affect the purchase? And they say it really does. When there's something you have and you read, and then they go through the list of
Side effects.
the potential side. It's not
Yeah.
even the potential side effects.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people are just. I asked that question. People hear that. When I hear it, I'm going to take a pass. It says, may affect your vision, may cause blindness, may this.
Yes.
But
Well, I know you're aware of Cali and Casey means, right?
yes,
Well, one of the things that they pointed out, and this is a very important thing for people to understand,
effects
is
may
what
cause
a
Canadian
lot of these
healthcare, yeah.
drugs do is they act to somehow or another mitigate the effects of poor metabolic health. But most of these problems that these people are suffering from wouldn't exist if we put an emphasis on metabolic health. If people got healthier,
Yeah.
they started eating nutritious food and taking vitamins, a whole host of these problems that people are having would go away. And the problem with that from the pharmaceutical drug standpoint is they wouldn't be able to sell drugs to these people.
incentive structures,
And
just
this
like
is
the
a
and
fear
the
that a lot of people
pesticides
have.
and things like that on the plants. And
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
It's terrible. Well, I think regenerative agriculture, unfortunately, is very difficult to scale to a point where you got a jack in the box on every corner.
Right, that's right.
If everybody
That's
wants
right.
food, and we have food deserts, and we have places like Los Angeles where no one's growing anything, and everything has to be shipped in, and it's very difficult to feed that many people. We've created this incredible society where we have these enormous cities, but it's very difficult to get food to these people. And then for a lot of these people in low-income areas, the only food that's available is cheap, unhealthy food.
That's right.
And we could fix that. That's if we could send $175 billion to Ukraine, we could do something to fix a lot of the health problems that the United States has. And I think it would help us as a nation overall. If you just put it out there that, hey, as a nation, we're going to make a concerted effort to get people healthier. Just
Support
put
your
it
local
out
taco
there,
truck,
and people start making better
absolutely.
choices.
Well, when you look
I'm
at
a
that
big
chart,
fan of them.
I was,
It's crazy.
They just gave me that chart because they said you may want to discuss this topic, which I know is a big topic
Yes.
for you. And when I looked at that chart and I looked at how unhealthy we are as a nation, that's a pretty big thing.
How are you so healthy? Is it golf?
No, it's genetics, I believe. I'm a big
Genetics
believer.
is a big factor.
I really
It's
am. I mean, my
genetics.
father was. He was
Unfortunately, it is a
remote,
big factor for health. Some people are just way more robust. But you do
Yeah.
play golf a lot, and that is
both
exercise.
of my parents. For me, it's good.
Yeah.
Fresh
It
air,
really is. It's fresh air. You're
exercise.
outside.
Yeah.
Even
Especially for a
mentally,
guy
you're
his age,
focused
he's
on
right.
that 3-footer, and
Yes.
for a couple of hours you're not. And I go quick. I play fast, real fast, and I'm in, I'm out. But it gives me. I was never one that could run on a treadmill. And I can do it. When passing a physical, they ask me to run on a treadmill, and then they make it steeper and steeper and steeper. And the doctor said it was at Walter Reed. They said, "It's unbelievable." I could have got. I'm telling you, I felt I
He's
could
the
have got all
healthiest
day.
72-year-old
But
man
said,
I know.
Doc,
No
I
one's
can do
healthy
this
like
all day
him.
long. I have no problem. But it's boring to me. Do you understand?
Right.
It's just boring.
Golf's exciting.
But I did it for
Yeah.
so long. They couldn't believe it that I did it. And I never did. I don't do it. I don't really, I have friends that run on this stuff all day long. But I had no problem doing it. But it's really boring. So with golf or something, or tennis or whatever.
Right.
But golf, as you get older, there's something really good about it. And you have competition with your friends.
Competition,
And, there's something-
concentration, focus.
And it's a great handicap sport.
And it's also a thing, I think, it cleans your mind because when you're looking at a shot, that's all you can think of when you're executing.
It gives you a couple of hours. It's interesting. Like with tennis, if you're much better than somebody, You can't really play with somebody. You know, it doesn't work. You can give them
That makes sense.
sort of the equivalent of strokes, right? But it's not the same. With golf, you can play with a lousy guy and give him a stroke a hole or 2 strokes a hole or something. You know, it's a good handicapping sport.
Right.
But it gives me a little exercise. But I haven't played in a long time. I won I won 32 club championships. Can
Didn't you
believe it?
play right after you got shot?
Can you believe it? No one golfs
No.
like me.
What I did is I played with Bryson DeChambeau. Do you know Bryson?
Yes.
The pro.
Uh-huh.
He's a great player. And we played, it was a certain thing that we played, I guess called breaking 50 or something. 50, we play from a certain tee, and if you can break 50. And it got tremendous ratings. It was sort of like a crazy thing. He's a great guy.
But
He's
wasn't that like a
great
couple
golfer.
of days after you got shot?
I don't know. I know I haven't.
That was one of the funniest
I
things. You were on
may
the golf
have.
course.
I think I did. Yeah, maybe I did.
I
But
remember that. He did.
You know,
What's up,
I view it
Delete
very
Laws? How you doing,
interestingly.
man?
I'm running.
Good to see you.
for
This
president
interview is a
of
little,
the United States.
it's not very
Such a big
exciting.
deal. It's so
They were talking about
important.
agriculture and health
I've
a second
done
ago,
now
and that
biggest
was
deal in
good.
the
But now
free
they're on
world.
golf.
It's 100 times bigger than the Super
If this
Bowl,
were anyone
and
else, I
it's
would have
one
cut it
person.
off by now.
Yeah.
But it is
So you're down to 2
the Donald.
people, and we start off at 9 billion, because you have 9 billion, they say, in the world. Who knows what that number is? But you get down to 350 million. Sadly, we have no idea what we have in this
He
country,
asked
but
him a
let's assume
few
it's
things,
325,
especially near the
350.
beginning, that weren't
And you're down to 2
softball.
people. It's the biggest thing in the world.
I don't think Joe has the
And when I
political
heard She took off
knowledge
yesterday, and she took
to
off the
not
day
ask
before. She's gonna
softball
take
questions.
off tomorrow or the next
He's
day.
he's
I haven't taken a day off.
informed
in
on certain
50,
things, but
6 days.
not
That's
everything.
A long time. I haven't taken one day off. I don't want to play golf. This is too exciting. Golf is great, but this is too exciting. This is more exciting than anything.
They got it. They were talking
And
about
also
UFC
it's the
for like
home stretch.
25 minutes.
It's the home stretch. Who would take a day off? So we have 11 days left now.
Okay, back
And-
to the election.
Think of it. So I think I've gone 54, 55 days in a row.
We're
No
too
days
early
off.
on the episode
And
release
I
to
make
see if there's any
speeches oftentimes,
exciting
or
parts,
sometimes not, but I make speeches. And when you make a speech,
like the little jumps in the
and my
YouTube.
speeches last a long time because of the weave. You know, I mean, I weave stories into it. And if you just read a teleprompter, nobody's going to be very exciting. You got to weave it out. So but you
why
always have to,
Kamala-
as you say,
was
you
that
always
a
have to get
Kamala
right
day?
back to where,
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's no good. But the weave is very, very important. Very few weavers around, but it's a big strain on your. You know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to be careful with the voice. You can lose that voice. The voice wasn't designed. I said today, so I made a big one last night. I was in Las Vegas. A big one the night before in Arizona. Big one. I mean, they're all big. We have there's never been anything like it in terms of crowd. Never been close. Never been close. They say, he talks about crowd size. You know what's very interesting? So we get crowds that are really big. And I say, you know,
We had the biggest crowds.
I've never had a story because I don't get good press. I don't think I've had a good story in years. I really don't. I swear. I don't think you were talking about it a little bit with Oprah. How everybody loved me. I don't think I became president of the United States.
I screwed
I
that
did
up.
great the
Oh, well.
second time. I did much better. I don't want to get you in any disputes, but I won that second election so easy.
Oh.
And not just because.
But let me
Interesting.
get
wait,
to that. I want to talk to you
but
about
here's
that.
the thing. I did that, and now I've gotten the nomination again. And don't forget, to get these nominations, you go against very smart people. Ron DeSantis was hot. Got to go through him. Nikki Haley was hot. Got to go through her. Went through everybody.
This-
record time, right?
This will be
Record
the
time.
first
I got
time
3
I am going to vote for
nominations in a row.
Trump. This is the first election I'll vote for a
Won the first
presidential
time, did
candidate.
much
I voted
better the
for
second time. You know, I get
Jorgensen in
millions of votes
2020
more the
and
second time. And now I'm doing it the
Johnson
third
in
time.
2016,
it's
the
an incredible
Libertarian
thing.
candidates.
I never get a good story.
I'm not voting for Chase
only
Oliver.
get bad
That would
press.
be
Now,
ridiculous.
I will say this: it's a lot easier if you're a Democrat. If I were a Democrat,
You get a lot of positive
Yeah.
press.
I would get a lot
And-
of
and-
positive.
Yeah,
press.
It really
it's a-
bothers
it's
me
a
that
creepy,
Kamala
corrupt
didn't
business.
win
And the media
primary.
to a large extent acts as a
I mean, they at least
propaganda arm for the
pretended not
Democratic
to
Oh,
Party.
screw over
it's not even believable.
Yeah, it's
Bernie
I mean, it's
back in the
bizarre
day.
to watch, and most young people I think are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's
And-
getting younger. Let me
Yes.
tell you, it's getting for us. For a
yeah,
conservative.
at least in practicality.
And you know, I don't
But you know
even,
why
I
that is?
consider myself
It's
a person.
the internet. It's because the internet's
think
giving
so.
people
Selected,
information
not
that they're not
elected.
getting
That's a good
from
way to put
anywhere
it.
else. And they
I
like
assume
the
a lot of you
very
saw
fine
that thread I
people
wrote
hoax.
that went
the
stupid
Russiagate
viral,
hoax,
like
all
8
these
million
different things that
impressions
they've
on
done,
Twitter.
they tried to pin on you. That's like, it's a clear
Actually, I wanna listen
distortion
to what
of
Trump's
what you
saying right now.
actually
The
said.
bloodbath hoax.
Yes.
I was talking about
Yes.
the auto industry.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a bloodbath because Japan and
Of
and
course.
China
It's a common
are taking
metaphor,
our
the
auto.
bloodbath
And I
metaphor.
said it's a bloodbath. They said,
a very
he
common
used the
business
word
metaphor.
bloodbath.
He
He
said
said,
if
if you
think
don't
of
win,
somebody,
it's going to be a bloodbath
that's
because
right.
they're going to
That's
take over.
right.
That's exactly what you
It's a terrible
Yeah.
thing they do.
But that's the problem with
Apparently you
propagandists,
don't
because
need
they
to be a
take things out of
citizen in certain
context, and
places.
ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility because people don't want to listen to them anymore because they see that they've done that and they
I
recognize
did that
what's
full
going
audit
on
of
and they
that.
feel insulted. Their intelligence is
Well,
getting
look at the
insulted.
ratings.
Of that
Yeah.
You know, shows like
journalist
yours.
who said
So I
that
have a
Joe
son
is one of the
who's
worst
very
people
smart
ever, and Trump's
and
going to
tall,
talk to him. It's
Barron,
ridiculous.
right? And he knows all about you. He knows about guys I never heard of. He said, Dad, you don't know how big they are. They're big. You know, he told me how big. I said, who the hell is he? Like Ross. I did. He said, Dad, he's a great
Aiden
guy.
Ross, that's who he's
I mean,
talking
guys
about.
that are doing.
Not really
It's a
familiar with the
whole
guy
new
too much.
world out there.
It's a different world. And
But you know,
I think,
I'm on TikTok now.
congratulations.
And I've done really well. No, but you know the crazy. Have you seen the numbers? Billions, like billions of hits. It's crazy.
I'm sure
Yeah, I'm
TikTok's a
pretty sure
wild
we don't
application.
And I've
have
gone
a
up
president.
30 points. A Republican
point.
is always down 30 with young
Mm-hmm.
people. I'm plus 30.
That
And
has
I'm
a
on
lot to do
TikTok.
with the.
I think young
It's had a
I
people,
don't
huge
think
impact.
he's
young
plus
people
30.
are rejecting a lot of this woke bullshit.
Yeah,
Young people
they are.
are tired of being yelled at and scolded. They're tired of these people that they think are mentally ill telling them what the moral standards
Yeah,
of
right.
society should be today. And people are upset.
It's a big. There's a big difference now, but even in
Gen
just a
Z
couple
is
of
more
years,
conservative than.
I was shaking hands with people. They're young people.
The
come-
rebels are
Millennials.
Republicans now. They're like, you want to
Yeah,
be
I
a
never thought of
rebel,
it
you
that
want
way. I
to be
think
punk
you're right.
rock, you want to like
Yeah.
buck the system. You're a
Yeah.
conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism.
I don't
they're
really like it either.
pro censorship online. They're talking
They
about
come after
regulating free speech and that regulating
Yeah,
the
they're just
First
circle
Amendment. It's
jerking. I mean, I'm with them,
bananas
but
to
good
watch.
Lord.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, they
I
do.
got more guys. I always say, you know, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win, but you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only
He's
that,
right.
but they're weaponizing
Crooked
it by
Hillary.
saying
I
that
love
that's
his
what
little
you're going to
nicknames.
do once
Oh,
you
yeah,
get in
yeah. Isn't it
office
great?
by ignoring
He
what
is
they're
go-
doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest. They
Mark
said,
what you're
Milley
that's
said
what
that.
you're doing
Mark
to
Milley
him.
should be
Yeah.
in jail.
A lot of
He
people say, will you do
called
that?
a Chinese
Will you
genital.
do that to
Insane.
him? To them if you win? You know, it's the presidency has tremendous power. I could have put crooked Hillary
I
in
respected
jail.
that you didn't because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
No, I can't. I couldn't even imagine. You have, first of all, Secretary of State, but more importantly, the wife of the President of the United States of America going into jail. And if you ever saw when I'd say something about her, they'd all say, I didn't say it. I never said it. They say, lock her up, lock her up. And I'd always go, take it easy, just relax. We're going to win this thing. Take it easy, take
Didn't
it easy.
he say that though? Didn't
And I'm
he
telling
say to
you, I
lock her
kept
up?
it down, just the opposite. Now they say, oh, Trump wanted to put her in jail. No,
Or maybe he didn't. Maybe that
I
was just
saved
a
her
phrase.
from going to jail. They had more stuff on her. And Comey had it because when Comey got up, and he stupidly, because he's a stupid guy too, he's a stupid son of a bitch. He got up. Joe,
I don't even
he
remember who
got up,
Comey is. I remember that
And
name.
instead of saying she's innocent,
too many
of all
characters on
charges,
this thing.
he went over each charge, and each charge was a killer. And he'd go, and as far as her doing this, she's innocent. And this, and then she's only an unfair prosecutor for it. We'd go,
Oh no, I do
every
remember
time you
Comey
heard
now.
these charges, they sounded so bad. They
Right.
were bad. And all it was is he wanted more airtime. If he would have gone up and said, I've thoroughly investigated Hillary Clinton and she's done nothing that we feel is wrong, it would have ended. Instead, he wanted to be up there because he's a
Is
PR
this still better
hound.
than Flynn Dibble,
He's
you
a
think?
hog. And he starts going
Well, I
through
think a lot of
and you
people
know what
here
he
like
had?
the Flynn Dibble
They
stuff.
had a huge problem because FBI is great. The people there, not the top people,
I
the
don't
people.
know about that.
The real people, the people that work there. It's like the real generals that I told you about
Right.
that defeated
Generals?
ISIS in
Oh
record
no,
time.
he's just making a.
The FBI guys are great. I'll bet you I'd be at 95% in the FBI.
I bet that's right.
Underneath.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. So he goes with Hillary.
Be a little high.
And instead of just saying, he goes through each charge.
Right.
And
Which
even
looks
I was
damning.
saying, man,
Yeah.
those are bad charges.
Sounds terrible because
And
it's
this is
associating
before I
her
got
with those
yeah.
charges.
Don't
Yeah.
forget, this is before I got there.
Right.
Now, he was trying to protect her, but he did her a great disservice.
Because he wanted attention.
He was stupid.
So I want to talk about 2020 because you said over and over again that you were robbed in 2020.
Yeah.
We got
Totally.
some stuff on
What-
Flint
how
Dibble
do
coming
you
out
think
soon. I'll
you
probably
were
do it
robbed?
this
Everybody
weekend.
always cuts you off. I'm going to
They
allow.
do. Well, they not only cut you off. Well, what I'd rather do is we'll do it another time, and I would bring in papers that you would not believe. So many different papers. That election was so crooked. It was the most crooked election.
Okay, but give me some
doesn't have the
examples of how.
details.
Well, let's start
Okay.
on the top and the easy ones.
Okay.
They were supposed to get legislative approval to do the things they did, and they didn't get it. In many cases, they didn't
Yeah,
get it.
Graham
What
Hancock
things?
will be very soon.
Anything. When they
Legislative
made,
approval
like
of
for extensions of the voting, for voting earlier, for this,
Right.
for all different things. By law, they had to get legislative approvals. You don't have to go any further than that.
I wish he'd be more
If you
specific.
take a look at Wisconsin, they virtually
Yeah, I haven't
admitted
watched
that
that
the
yet. I'm
election
going to,
was
of course.
rigged,
He's a
robbed, and stolen.
Who
They
admitted?
wouldn't
Who
give
was they?
access in certain areas to the ballots because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. They were. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present
Well,
this
let me-
ever? Like, what do you think? Like,
Let
in
me
a-
just give you one
okay,
more
go ahead.
before. 51 intelligence agents come up that the laptop was from Russia.
This isn't related to the
It
election.
turned out to be
but
totally
yes.
false. It
51
wasn't.
former intelligence agents, right?
They say that made. I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't have to. I won by I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe. They say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over that's spread over this period. So, 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from
They
his
were.
bed.
They
was
said
Hunter's
it. They were
laptop.
very
They
slimy
said
in
it
their
was
words.
created by Russia.
They said it
Russia,
carried the
it was the Russia
hallmarks
hoax.
or something
The Russia
of
hoax
Russian
was a big
intelligence.
hoax. It was all a big hoax. So
Well, that's
Yeah.
clear.
They get Mueller.
That's
well,
one example. But that is a good
but that's
example.
a big example. They say it made a 17-point difference. That's a big example. But that's only
It
one.
probably won them the
And
election.
you could go into the ballots where they wouldn't give you access to the ballots.
Oh, that's
you
why
could
it's
go
related
into
to
the
the
ballot
election.
harvesting.
Obviously,
You
I
could go
see.
into $500 million for the lock boxes.
But just in
What
terms
about
of
the
narrative,
social
so there's
media
two things,
stuff?
right?
That
there's
was
the
the big
Russia
one for
hoax.
me,
There's
which
the
is pretty
collusion with
obvious.
Russia that was never proven, right? That's
Well,
one.
no, it's proven it didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But they talked about it on
But it took
television.
2.5 years to prove.
But not only that, but it was a constant narrative
And they
on
still
television.
say it, too. They
So
said it on
that's
Bill
a
Maher the
constant
other day.
narrative that gets into people's minds, especially low information people that just watch the news,
Sure.
that you're in collusion with Russia. So that's one.
Sure.
So that changes the narrative. And then you have the 51 former intelligence agents that work with the original Twitter and get them to
Okay.
remove links.
They're bringing
you
up
can't
the social
share it on
media, yes.
DMs. You cannot
Yes.
share that story. They
That
they
story from
swept
the
that
New York
story
Post.
because they said it was
That-
Russian disinformation.
several of these
even
things on
though
their
they
own.
knew it was not.
100%.
So that's
That's
two examples.
even without
that are
the
real examples.
idea of
Now,
ballot
anyone
stuff in, yes.
who considers himself a legitimate, objective observer of American politics, if you really want the best person to win, you would want people to not lie. And the only reason why they got away with this lie was because they continually labeled you as this horrible threat to democracy and Hitler.
Yeah.
They
But-
kept saying you're going to be a dictator, ignoring the fact that you weren't a dictator for the 4
Correct.
years where you were
The
actually
opposite.
the president.
I was actually the opposite of a dictator. I was a very
What's the
straight
opposite of a
guy.
dictator?
But look, those
Straight.
three things, you take those three
Did you just
things,
call Kim Jong-un
Each one of
gay?
them by themselves causes the result to be different. Okay?
It does.
And then
Yeah.
you can
No,
go
he's
into
right.
100 other things. There's so many. We can't have corrupt elections, and we can't have open borders. You need to have a
Thank
country.
you. Now
you
we're
need
getting into the
borders.
stuff
You
we should be
need
talking
fair
about.
elections. And I'll tell you the other thing you need is you need a free and fair press. One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her
she'd
doing
be
the show.
laying.
I
She'd
would
be
try
laying
to-
on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might
She
still
wasn't
do it,
gonna
and
do
I
it.
hope she does.
She's not gonna
I
do
will
it.
talk to her like a human being. I will
If
try
she
to have a
did this
conversation
kind of an
with her.
interview with you, I hope she
I'm
does
listening
because it
intently.
would be a mess. She'd be laying on
think
the
it would
floor
be a mess.
comatose.
She's not
She'd be
used
saying,
to-
"Call in the
she
medics."
has
I think
no
we'd have a
precedence
fine
for this.
conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try
I
to
doubt
interview
it.
her. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on, trying to get her to express herself.
Joe,
Just
say
as
why
I don't
she's
know
not
if
coming
these,
on.
I don't think these formats are good. I don't think that two people. First of all, I hate the idea of the presidential debates because I hate the idea of a time limitation on complex ideas. Also, you have to break.
I
for
think you have to have the debates still.
Right, but the way they do the debates, I think, is the wrong way to do it. I think they should have a conversation. I think you and Kamala, you sit across a table with
does.
no one
He's
in the
really
room
good
but
at
the
it,
two
too.
of you. Of course, you're not going to shout at each other. Of course, you're not
well,
going to
you
insult
may.
each other.
I mean, it may get. They used to do it
Hopefully
that
it
way.
wouldn't, but that would be the way
Yeah.
to do it.
They
And
used to
just
do it that way
to
in the
put
old days.
cameras on you with no one interfering with press.
think Trump
with,
is being
with
or
checking whether or not it's
Joe is
factual,
being a little
especially when
naive
it's
here.
biased, because they checked you all those times
love
and
to
they
see
didn't
it, Joe.
check
I'd
her
love to be proven
with
wrong, I
clearly
guess.
things that were inaccurate, right? So have two people just have a conversation with us without a time constraint. And also this idea they cut off the microphone
Well,
when
and no crowd. How
no
about
crowd, crazy too, because you're good at working a crowd.
I would rather have a crowd. But
Of course
I
you
would.
would.
Rather,
You're good at crowds.
But I had no. So they gave me an alternative. I don't think he wanted to debate.
Why did they want no crowd?
Because
What was the
I
argument?
think they thought I wasn't going to accept it. So I believe what they wanted to do is have me not accept. So they gave me a deal I couldn't refuse.
Did Kamala actually
and
do
I said,
that?
I'll do it. Okay. It's like the mob.
Right.
I'll take it. So
Was
they
that
came
just
to
like
me. They said,
supporters?
we'll debate Joe Biden. You know, that thing got tremendous ratings,
Oh.
too. That was crazy.
From
But
Newsweek,
we'll debate Joe Biden.
it says
but
needs
you can't have a
context.
crowd.
So I'm
They
going to
also
say
wanted
yes, she
sitting
did.
down. I
Let's
said
read
that's
the
the only thing. I
specifics.
said, look, you gotta stand up. You can't really sit down. You
Right.
know, in the old days they did sit down a little bit, but
He gets tired.
you got to stand up. And they agreed to it. It was a very tough thing. It almost killed it. They wanted to have like desks we sit. I said, I think we should stand up. And that was the only thing I asked for. I said, we got to stand up. I thought it looked bad for like the public, but they said no crowd and cut off the mic. And I said, I can live with it. I mean, I can live with it. And they thought I was going to reject it. And then they would say he didn't want to
She
debate
said he was a
Sleepy
fascist.
Joe.
That's not the same
Right.
thing as Hitler.
That's
Right.
what they thought was going
Well,
to
they
happen.
tried to say that with you and Kamala as well. They tried to say that you didn't want to debate her as well.
No,
But
by the way,
that's-
with her,
Okay, fascist,
number
but
one,
not
I'm
Hitler.
leading.
That's
Number two. You know, I didn't. They also said it with the primary, so I had like
I'm
10,
surprised they
12
said that as
guys,
neat
right,
context because
in
that
the
seems a
primary.
lot
no
less.
stupid guys. I mean,
That's
they're
not
governors
really
in
true
the
then.
Senate. They're not stupid people. Some are stupid, but not all of them. And all my guys said, you have to be in the debate. I said, why? I'm leading by 74 points. The closest guy to me, I'm like
Carmella.
60 points, 70 points higher. Why would I stand there like an idiot for 2 hours and let every one of them scream at me, I'm going to be the focus? Why?
Right.
And I said, I'm not debating. And it was a very smart thing because, you know,
At least he
it
won
was-
in the
they just
primary.
killed
unlike
The
themselves.
Kamala.
Republican primaries.
yeah, the
Yes.
Republican primaries. I like debating. I think you have to debate, but I like
it has to be
debating.
fair.
I like debating like the Rosie O'Donnell debate. I like debating when you have a crowd. Remember the Rosie
Yeah,
O'Donnell?
it was very
thing?
funny.
It was a
Megyn
crazy
Kelly.
thing, Megan. That was a hell of a question, man. If I didn't come up with that answer,
was a
I
great
was
line.
dead. Well, what it was is, you know, we had 28,000 people. That was the Cleveland Arena where the Cavaliers played.
Right.
LeBron James. I'm not a big fan of LeBron James, but he is a
Neither
good
am I.
basketball player.
Diddy
But, you know,
parties.
that was
Let me confirm that he was
and
at
when I
Diddy
said
parties.
that, the place went crazy. And she
'Cause it's
kept
funny.
talking. No, she had like 10 of the.
Yeah, well, Megan
names.
said you said it to other people, and you admitted you did, but it was funny. It was a comedic
It
timing
was,
moment.
It was fine.
That's what they wanted
It
to
was
avoid.
lucky I did it because she was drowned. Oh, she wasn't finished. That question, but she
Right.
kept
Yes,
talking,
right,
but you
right,
couldn't hear.
right.
To
To
Diddy
this day, they
parties.
don't know what she said, but it wasn't buzzing. So anyway, but we
Wait,
had a good
did they?
time.
Well, it's
I
comedic
think
timing,
it's
and that's the
important.
reason why to have a debate
this
in
again.
front of a large audience. And then they
Well, how
probably
did
thought
I
you
do
had
with the Al
stacked the
Smith
deck.
dinner? I got very
was
good
great.
reviews on that.
That was great. Very funny.
got
It's
good
very funny
reviews.
stuff. The Tim Wall stuff was very funny.
Tim Walsh, yeah.
He's funny.
That's a real beauty.
That's a crazy one. She said that she had picked him, and this is one of the questions I want to ask her, when she was sleep deprived. She said she was suffering from sleep deprivation when she picked him, which is just like
I was.
Hey, maybe take a nap.
So I was okay. Look, let's see how it all turns out. I think we're going to win. I think we're way ahead now. I think we're way ahead. But
Can I bring you back to
if they
2020?
lose,
Can I bring you back?
I think they're going to look at two things. They're going to say they should have had a primary, even if it was a short primary.
Yes.
They shouldn't have picked her.
I mean,
and
yeah,
then she's going to say I
you
shouldn't have
obviously
picked this
should have a
guy.
primary.
She shouldn't have picked that guy.
That guy's a
just
disaster.
the lying about Tiananmen
Waltz is
Square.
the worst.
Everything.
Man.
Admitted
Waltz is
that, yeah,
worse
the
than her.
military record,
But
assistant
she
coach
lied
versus
too. She
head
lied
coach.
too.
Yes,
Little things. So I did McDonald's last week.
I saw that.
And I actually got a call from
Many
your friends at
such
Google.
cases.
From Sundar. That's pretty good, right? He said, this is the biggest thing we've had in years.
You
The
at
hits.
McDonald's?
At McDonald's. Did you know that? It was one of the,
It was funny.
who's
It
a
was
great
great.
guy, by the way, but he said, this McDonald's thing, I want to tell you, it's one of the biggest things we've ever had on
It was
Google.
an incredibly
It just
good
hit.
political move.
But the reason I did it, and I actually, you never know about this stuff. I thought it was a throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think our conversation's a throwaway, but I thought I'd walk in, and that was
That
only to
McDonald's is
highlight the
getting
fact.
threats?
And I have a friend, he owns like 56
Wow.
of these McDonald's, and he said, "Do you want to use one?" I said, "Yeah, I love it." So we went there, and the crowd was crazy. You know, they had 28,000 people around the whole thing. Did you see the outside? It was
love that
crazy.
Indian
the
guy.
cars couldn't get through. Secret Service was not exactly
there.
thrilled. We had no idea what the hell. But I went into the place, and I did the French fry thing, and it just hit. But that's like in life. Sometimes you do. I thought it was like a quick throwaway. We're going to be there for 15 minutes. Then I said, I've worked here for 15 minutes, which is 15 minutes more than she worked here. She lied about McDonald's. And you know,
Is
those
that proven that she never worked at
100%.
McDonald's?
Well, McDonald's has no information. No, she has no information. There's nobody. The manager said she never worked there. You know, it was a certain place, and he said they never. No, she lied. She's a liar. You know what they do? They'll say, like, on any one of the questions, take any, they'll say, it's the exact opposite of what I say. IVF. He's against IVF, the fertilization.
Right.
And it's the exact opposite. I came out immediately strongly in favor. And they do ads. I'm against it. It's wrong. On every single topic. And, you know, she changed policies on 15. I've never seen anybody change on more than one. You know, you can maybe get away with one. Her whole life, fracking, every single thing that she
did.
was
I've
for,
already shown. She
the
went
confiscation
back
of
and forth
guns. She
on
wants to confiscate. Now she's
guns
saying
and
everybody should have a
fracking.
gun. In fact, we're going to get
Guns
her a
the one I
MAGA
care
cap.
about the
I'm going to
most.
send her a MAGA cap. But she's changed, and I don't think
picture
people
of
are
Biden
buying
and MAGA
it.
is my
I don't think
favorite.
people are buying it.
Well, some people are buying it because they want to buy it because it's blue no matter who. There's a certain percentage of our population that's going to vote Democrat no matter what.
That's
And
true.
They're
Going the other
pressured.
way.
There's their community, their ideology.
You know what I
left
don't
is good,
understand?
right is evil.
I don't understand why. Okay, you have a wall, or you have a. You know, I built 570 miles of wall. Everyone said I built a lot of wall. Exactly the stuff. But you have a border. What I don't understand is who would want people to come into our country from places unknown, like sometimes they'll say about a fighter, from parts unknown, right? Remember Haystack Calhoun, from parts, he says
Yeah, the
from
old
parts unknown, the oldest, those are the old
Yeah.
days. That's even before you. But who would want people to come in, pouring into our country? We don't know anything about
Yeah, I
it.
don't
But that's
know.
I want to ask you this. Why do you think they're doing that?
I
Very
think
scary.
because
Do you think they're trying to buy votes? Do you think they just want
think
cheap
Israel
labor?
attacked
Like,
Iran
what's
today.
the
okay,
idea?
there's a couple of theories. They hate our country, they're stupid, or they want to
Okay.
buy votes.
Well, these are
it's
not
one of
good.
those three things.
Yeah.
They want it now. They are trying to get people registered who don't even know what the country
And they're
is.
trying to give people amnesty. People that
They
live
wanna
here, they're
give
trying to
them
give them a
amnesty,
path
They
to
want to give them
citizenship.
citizenship, and they want to. Well, how
And
about what
if
happened?
you think
in-
about the amount of money that they've given them when they've come here, the
Yeah.
food stamps, the benefits that even our poor people aren't getting.
$200 billion, and that's a way low number. That's a way low. You know, it's interesting. New York has always been like, sort of like always looking for money. They've spent $100 billion on this stuff. I don't know where and they're not getting the money from the federal government. It's crazy.
Who knows?
And because
it's
the
not
mayor
zero though.
Came out and
I
said,
was thinking more
we can't live like
intelligence
this.
assets.
They investigated them.
He
I'm
gets
sure
I,
that
by the way, I
non-zero
called
number
it.
of them are
I
that.
said he just
I don't
got
know about
himself
foreign
indicted.
mercenaries.
This group is stupid, but they're vicious. They're stupid people, but they're vicious people.
The
which is a bad
2020
combination.
elections, you say you have all this evidence that
Yep.
it was rigged. Why haven't you put this evidence in a consumable
did.
form In what?
Oh, I did. I have books on it, and by the way, books have been written on it.
Yeah, he's
We
right.
have an
I
author
don't know
named
about
Hemingway, who is a great writer. She wrote a book on
Ernest
it, but
Hemingway? Oh,
many books have been written on it. There are books that
Oh,
are.
okay. I see what you mean now.
What's happened is judges don't want to touch it. They would say you don't have standing. They didn't rule on the merits. They ruled the merits never got there. The judges didn't have what it took to turn over an election.
Let's talk about the potential vulnerabilities for elections and election fraud. One of them is mail-in ballots. The other one is if someone can break into voting machines, if someone can hack
both are
voting
big
machines.
trouble.
Those are two huge ones.
So
And
Elon
what can be
Musk,
done?
Elon Musk, I think he said it publicly. I hope he did because I wouldn't want to be the one. But he's a really smart guy, and he's a very good guy with computers, right? You'd say he's
He's one of the smartest people alive.
anybody that can land that
Yeah.
20-story building and perfect and boom.
While he's doing Starlink, while
And
he's
while
doing
he's talking to
Tesla,
me about
while he
some-
owns Twitter,
and then
yeah.
he agrees to Starlink,
and he tweets 100 times a day.
he's an amazing guy. Right?
Yeah.
He said to me that unless you have paper ballots, it can never be an honest election. That's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
We should go to paper ballots. You know, France did. They went to mail-in voting, and it was all messed up.
What can
you know
be
the
done?
amazing thing with the machines? So we have the machines. They cost 10 times more. Paper ballot would cost 8%. And they make paper ballots, they're all watermarked and everything else. They're very sophisticated. But if you take a look, paper ballots, 8% the cost, and you're done by 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Now we have these sophisticated machine. It goes up to heaven. It goes all over the place and down and around. And they say, we'll need 2 weeks to figure out who the hell won the election.
Do you think that's by design?
Yeah, I do. I think
Okay.
I think it's very crooked. That's my opinion.
You're allowed to have an opinion. What could, let's say you win in November, what can be done to mitigate these problems? What could be done at at the level that the president has power?
Well, if I win, this will be my last election. But I think I owe
has
it
to
to
be.
the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I owe it to the country. We have to have fair elections.
So how can you fix that?
You know, Jimmy Carter was in charge of a commission, that many years ago.
It was like he's
And they
filibustering.
put him and Scoop Jackson and various senators, distinguished people that were retired. And they came up with a report. And the report's primary finding was you cannot have mail-in ballots. Because if it's a mail-in ballot, I went to the
I mean, it
voting booth the
changes
last time,
the
whatever it
entire
was.
nature of the election.
And I walked in Palm Beach, and I walk in, and they know me. They say, Mr. President, could I see your identification? Yes, boom, here's this, here's that, everything. And then you sit, and they watch you sign, and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot,
Right.
it has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left. And it's so bad. The one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong commission. It was no mail-in ballots. And we're the only one that does elections this way anymore. They've gotten away from
And
them.
this is it ticked up in a big way after COVID. It used to be like soldiers serving overseas.
They use
people
COVID
that
to
could-
cheat.
Yeah. Well, they use COVID to certainly push this mail-in ballot. Another thing
Well, no,
that
but
they
that's
yes.
but they use COVID to cheat.
But here's another
And the
one.
last election was a little bit of you couldn't even get security guys, big, strong guys to watch. You know what? You'd call them. They'd call them, and they were afraid to go out. We were in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the middle of COVID, right smack in the middle, and they didn't want to die. They didn't want to catch it. It was like, in a way, it was like a ghost town, and the whole thing. But mail-in ballots are a bad thing.
That certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots are a problem.
But every
Another
other country,
problem is
other
voter
countries,
ID.
Yeah, a voter ID. How
Voter
about
ID is the most bizarre argument that
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you
wanna
don't
cheat.
need voter.
No, I
well,
haven't
it
seen
doesn't
that.
make
That's
sense
very
any other way.
interesting.
I've tried to straw man it, or I've tried to steel man it rather. I've tried to look at it from a position like, why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are
Cheat.
just ridiculous. You
Gavin
need an
Newsom.
ID to get a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the
New
world.
scum.
And I used to get
Fantastic.
along, but I don't get along with him now because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom the other day signed a bill
Scum is what he's
that
saying.
you are not allowed to ask a person, even ask them whether or not they have a voter ID.
Now, what could be
If
a
you ask-
charitable reason why anybody
Because they
would
wanna
want
cheat.
that? But
Because
that
they
would be
wanna
the
cheat.
only thing that makes sense.
But that's taking it to the next level.
right.
Now, you know, you have ID. The Democrat National Convention, when they had it the last time, I saw, they had a sign like a billboard on the name of the person, where they live, how they live, who the hell their boyfriends are. Every single, it was, and a big picture. That's for they have an ID, a big ID. It was hanging like you were a prisoner. They had these massive cards, everything. And yet when it comes to the vote, in theory, the most important thing we do, okay? When you go to a grocery store, you give ID. But for a vote, it's supposed to be a sacred thing, and it should be a sacred thing. No voter ID because they want to cheat.
Well, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I've tried to look at
There's
it.
no other way.
There's no argument that anybody's presented that makes any sense. Why?
You know the funny thing, Joe? The
One of the
Democrats,
weirdest
the
things.
people, they all think you should have it. In other words, you should have voter
Yeah.
ID. If you go to the people, Mrs. Schwartz, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones,
Sure.
they say, of course, yeah. Democrats,
Who doesn't have
they
an
say
ID?
yes.
It's
It's
ridiculous.
the politicians that don't want it, like Schumer and these guys. They don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. Because you know what? If they didn't have it, okay, who is going to vote for somebody that wants open borders? Who's going to vote for somebody that wants to have men playing in women's sports? You know, I have never had one person come up to me and say, President, you got to do something to allow men to play in women's sports. Have you ever? Just like I've never been called by a pollster. I told you my little theory on pollsters, okay? I'm getting myself in trouble with some of these things, but I don't really care. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to have men play in women's sports. And, you know, I had a funny thing. At a property I own in California, I have a woman who's a very good athlete, and she works there as a manager. And Brian Urlacher, the big Chicago Bears, great player, you know, 10-time All-Star, I guess Hall of Famer, great guy, big, strong guy. And she said, oh, he's one of my favorite athletes. Can I have a picture? And I took a picture and I sent it. And I noticed she was the size of his leg. His leg was bigger than she was. And I put it out, should men play in women's sports?
Oh, my gosh.
It was just so ridiculous.
What's one of the most bizarre and polarizing ideas that's promoted by the
But
left?
who wants it? Now, unless you're going to cheat in elections, you're never going to get. Nobody wants it.
Right.
I don't think anybody wants it. I've been told everything. You know, you can. Some people want this. I don't know of anybody that wants open borders. Nobody's ever come up to me and say, President, you got to let the world
Spent
come
enough
into our
time on
country.
liberal
Right.
arts colleges.
Now, if they won, so they have 21 million. I think it's much higher than that because you have gotaways. You know, gotaways where they just walk in, they walk
Right.
in. But and the other thing you have is human traffickers. You have traffickers, and they traffic
Thank
in
you.
women, and they're going
And
wild
children.
now. We used to, you know where you have to look? The trunk of cars. Can you believe it? They put women in trunks. They'll put 3 women in a trunk. These people are savages. They're horrible. The worst people.
They're
The
going
hum-
to take
and
that
they're
out of
making
context and say
the
he's
kind of
talking
money
about
they make on
immigrants in
drugs, they're
general, but
almost
he's talking
making
about
on
sex
trafficking now.
traffickers. I
And the
guarantee
thing
I will
that's
find
made
that
it
tomorrow.
hot is the internet. That's what, you know, you think of it almost as an ancient thing, but it's the internet. But who would want to have these things? Who would want to have, there's so many, the transgender operations where they're allowed to take your child when he goes to school and turn him into a male, to a female, without parental consent. Who wants this? Does
Experienced
anybody
that
want this? I've
personally,
never heard of anyone.
in
And
the
I can
sense
go
that I
into
was
10
a-
different things. The only way they get them
The
is
dad did
by
not know
no
that they
voter
had
ID.
socially
You can't have
transitioned
voter ID.
his
They don't want any.
daughter.
They want to cheat. There's only one reason, because the voter ID is so basic. It's the most basic thing
It's
there
very
is.
basic.
Who would want this? They want it so they can cheat because their policies are no good. I'll tell you, they're very smart when it comes to that. They're very smart, although they're not smart in terms of politics in a way, because what do they have that people want? They really don't have. They give away a lot of health care, a lot of stuff. But for the most part, their policies are terrible. Their policy on military, she's running on a tax hike. She's going to raise your taxes. You got to hear this. We are going to raise your taxes.
that.
And the people clap. But who is going to win with her? All my life, I grew up where politicians lower taxes. she's politicking that we are going to raise your taxes.
Well, they want to raise the idea is you want to raise the taxes to the highest earners.
I know, but
they
it really
think that
doesn't work that way.
millionaires and billionaires are not paying their fair
I know,
share.
but
She
it
wants
doesn't
to-
work that way.
Well, it's a narrative, right? And it's a narrative that appeals to people that are not doing well.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, our problems are that these rich people are not paying taxes.
Well, the problem is that the rich people are going to leave, and they're going to close up their companies, and then
Right.
the other people aren't going to have jobs. That's what happens.
It does happen in other
But
countries.
the whole, because you brought it up, I'll tell you what. We just he's doing a very good job in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin. I don't know if you like him, not like him.
I don't know.
But you don't know the governor of Virginia. So we have a case where they found thousands of illegal ballots. A judge just ruled that they have to be able to vote. Just happened today. Just before I walked in here, I heard a judge just ruled that you have to keep those people in.
Social
They're
Security
illegal. They're
taxes.
illegal votes. Now, I think they'll be overturned at the next court. One thing I found,
didn't
because I had a
specify,
couple
but
of
I
things
assume
that
they
they
were
got
talking about
overturned a
income
little bit, the
taxes.
system, because the system, you have to hope
Oh, that's wonderful. I got to watch
that
that
the
interview.
appellate judges are honest. Otherwise, we don't have a country anymore. It's very important. But the whole thing with
Well, this
illegal
is from the
ballots has
Hill.
got to
I
be looked at.
generally
You got
trust
to
the
have
Hill.
you have to have voter ID, and you have to have
Oh, but it's an
additional
opinion
ID. You have to
contributor.
have an ID that shows that you're a citizen of the country.
I agree.
They don't want that either.
I agree. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is the JFK files. One of the things that you said was that if they showed you what they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So, I opened them up.
He seems
partially.
nervous right now.
I
Trump
was
does.
met with from good people. I mean, look, good people that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person. They called me. They said,
Okay.
"Sir, would
I
rather
don't.
have you
Seems
not."
like she didn't say that.
After,
but whatever.
and I did open them, but I was asked by some people not to open them. There's a Martin Luther King file too, by the way, that they'd like to see. I don't know if you know, but there is that.
Yeah, Martin Luther King
but
was
JFK in
recorded
particular.
while a
So,
woman was.
They called me. A lot of good people called me. People that
Can't even say what was
that you would
being
find
done, but you
reasonable
can probably
people.
Guess.
And they asked me not to
in the
do it,
room.
so I said, "Well, we'll close it for another time." But if I win, I'm going to open them up. I'm just going to open enough.
Why
time.
didn't you
Okay, so
open it
he
up the first
hasn't
time?
done
though?
Because
What
a lot
was-
of
what was
times,
the hesitation, though?
Addresses, people that are still living. There are people that are affected, and there could be some national security reason that that I don't have to necessarily know about. But some very good, talented people asked me not to do it. I opened it up, and then they said, "Would it be possible for us to do that a different day?"
How much of
nobody-
it did you read into?
He seems so.
I think
nervous
it's going
right
to be
now.
just fine to open.
Yeah,
it.
I'm
Let me put it
awake.
that
I'm
way. I
tired. I'm
think
going
it's
to bed
fine. It's
after
gonna
this,
be
but we're
time.
going to finish it
It's
out.
a cleansing. It's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do
He
it. I'm going to
seems
do
very
it
nervous
immediately,
right now.
almost immediately upon entering office.
Well, the thing, when people look at it from the outside and you sort of imagine what could be a reason why they
Yeah.
would not release those files, it would be there's people that were implicated
That's why I'm
in
gonna
the
open.
assassination.
Yeah. Well, when they're living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living
Okay, but if
Living
somebody was
people that
involved-
formerly worked for the government.
for the government and living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a
Yeah, I was
reasonable ask. But
wondering
now
the
I'm going to do it.
same
I'm going to do it
thing,
very
Godly
soon.
Moose. It
There's a lot of
feels
interest in it.
everything is
One of the
relevant.
things that
There's
I'm
a lot
very-
of interest in the
Probably
people coming
eventually,
from
probably
space.
not
You know?
immediately.
Yes.
And I know you're interested.
Oh,
in
I'm
that
very
too.
interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they tell you? How much can you tell?
So
How's that work? Is it like super
I think
top
I
secret?
Can tell, you know.
Tell
I think,
me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell
Yes.
I want, right? But
Well,
no.
They
But I
eventually did
interviewed
prosecute him,
a
I
few
think.
people. It's never been my thing. I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that
Isn't that
Area
I think they're talking
51 or
about
whatever it
aliens
is.
right now.
I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las
Well,
Vegas.
that's
Do you know
not
that, right?
Sure. I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I
It is a
interviewed
big
jet
tourist thing.
pilots
I don't know about the biggest.
that say they saw something.
Okay, well,
If
so
you
is
saw them,
Joe
you'd love to
Rogan.
have them as
I've
your
had a
son.
couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Crap.
Yeah.
I had him
Still
in,
here.
who had that sighting in 2004. Very,
Yeah.
very compelling with
Very
video
compelling.
evidence, radar evidence.
I interviewed,
Brian Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people, perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, you know. And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were
a great shape.
talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations
No.
about? Was this your personal interest?
A little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, you know, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life, you know.
What?
Because
Well, Mars, we've had probes there and
Well,
rovers,
yeah,
and
but-
I don't think
yeah.
there's any life there.
Well, maybe it's life that we don't know about. Maybe it's
maybe
a
there was
different
life
kind of
there
life.
at one point in time. This is
Yeah.
the speculation about
Wait,
Mars,
isn't
that
there
Mars
bacterial
had
life there? They should really
an
specify.
atmosphere at one point in time, a long time ago, that could support
Where
life. It
would
also,
you
also
say
had
that?
large bodies of water, but we've had no evidence of even bacterial life that exists on Mars.
Oh,
but
maybe I'm wrong.
the
It's
universe
not
is
been a
pretty
big
vast.
thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people thought, for a little while that was you know,
Right.
one of these things. So,
Well, that's
you know,
a lot of the speculation too. That some of these drones that
Could
hover
be.
over battleships, that these
be.
are Chinese drones, and that
That
they're not
could be.
UFOs.
They
They're-
could be also.
There's some super
But
sophisticated.
I did interview, let's say,
Somebody
3 or 4
knows
guys
they're
that,
Chinese.
and without tremendous interest, if you had them, as I said, you'd love to have them as your children. Solid, beautiful people. They said, "Sir, there's something there." You know,
There's
they
something
said
there.
they've said it. Yeah,
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of
they're
them.
not
that have-
conspiracy guys.
Well, I mean, just the Commander David Fravor thing in 2004 off the coast of San Diego, they clocked that thing going
Yeah.
from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in a second.
Yeah,
They don't know what it is.
That's tough to beat.
Yeah, they saw something in the water. It was hovering over that something that was
I-
making a
I
disturbance
fully
in the
agree with
water.
this.
They got video evidence of this thing. 2 different fighter jets with pilots in them saw it. There's, visual evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, radar evidence. Whatever the hell it is, it moves in a way that would turn a human being into jello if they were
Yeah.
inside of it. The G-force, no one would survive.
Oh,
so
the
what is
G-force.
that? And we don't. It doesn't have a heat signature. They don't know what their propulsion system was. But
When you fly in some of these jets, these pilots have to be in great shape.
oh yeah, I flew
When
with the
you
Blue
talk
Angels
about-
once,
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
I
an
got to
example.
fly- I guess
and
it's
those
an
are older,
FA-18.
and those are older machines.
and they're crazy.
When you fly in some of these things,
Oh, my
it's
God.
amazing. Yeah, but
Yeah, I can imagine.
You got to be special.
But these things that these people are encountering are far superior to what we know of.
Yeah.
Is it possible that there's some military or government program that you weren't, that they didn't tell you about?
I think I had a great relationship with the military, basically, but I didn't like
doesn't
certain
answer the
people. I
question.
would have gotten them out if I thought if the election was different, I would have fired all of them quickly. Most of them I did fire. Biden should have fired every military person involved with Afghanistan.
I agree.
He should have had a lot of firings. If you look at him, he told Israel not to do anything, and at least Israel's not going to look at a bomb the way they would have been. Think if they listened to Biden. They'd be waiting for a bomb to drop on their head right now. He's been wrong about so much. I guess you'd have to say that she's been wrong too, because she always said they made the decision together. But Israel didn't follow his advice, and I think it was a very
Thanks, Blue
it's a
Cross. I
very
appreciate
the
it.
Middle
You
East
are
is rapidly
definitely my
changing.
biggest
There are
monetary supporter by far.
prophets
I
that say
really
the world will
appreciate it.
come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right?
This has been a snooze fest,
And
but
We
you know,
have
had
weapons
to
today
watch
that
it
are
and
so
figure that
scary.
out. It's
When
not
you
like I
look-
wasn't going to watch
I
it.
rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons. And we have other weapons too that are devastating. But the nuclear weapons, the biggest threat we have in the world today, and that's what I was talking about de-escalation with both China and Russia. I'm telling you, we were going to
They
de-escalate. They were
invaded
going to
Crimea
de-escalate.
under
You gotta be
Obama.
careful.
They invaded
It's a
Ukraine
little tricky playing with them.
under
because they say we're going to do it and they don't do it maybe. But they understood the curse too. It's a curse. It's China's way behind us, but they'll catch us within 5 years.
So let's imagine, let's say you win in November. What do you do differently, and how do you change this course that it seems we are on for World War III? How do you get us out of Ukraine? How do you stop what's going on in the Middle East? How do you put a stop to this?
Well, it's a very to me, it's an easy question because I think I can do it easily, but it's a complex question in the sense that the times change. Every day changes.
War. The game is more exciting.
Who's winning, who's not winning. I mean, Russia's a war machine. Whether you like it or not, it just grinds along. You speak to people like Viktor Orban.
Viktor Orban, my uncle.
Just a big, fat
Uncle
war
Victor.
machine. And that's what's happening. You look at what's happened to Ukraine. If I were there, it would have never happened.
But what could you
And
do
just
now?
think-
If you
well,
get into office in
right
January,
now-
what
right
could you do now?
Right now, you would get both of them. I know both very well. And again, I do not want to tell you, for the purpose of looking smart to 5 people that, that say, oh, he was great. Because if I told you exactly what I do, I could never make the deal. All I can tell you is that I would meet with Putin and I would meet with him, and I know exactly what I'd say to each one of them. And I believe that as president-elect, I would get that war stopped and stopped fast.
Think
We
would
have
not
tremendous power in the United
happen
States if you know how to
through a
use the power.
conversation.
I stopped other wars just by the use of tariffs. I got Macron of France. Good guy, he's like a friend of mine, but he's a wise guy. And he's a person that likes France, and he was going to tax our companies. I say, and I sent all the smartest guys. I sent Mnuchin, they all failed me. And I said, I'll do it myself. And I called him. I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies. We're not going to allow you to do that. Oh, Donald, I cannot do it. Nothing I could do. It's already been passed. I said, Emmanuel, if you do that, I'm going to put 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes that come into the United States, and you're going to regret that you ever did it. He said, Donald, please, that's not fair. Anyway, within about 2 minutes, he
love
dropped
his
the whole
French
thing. And it
accent.
was massive amounts of money against American companies. I have to protect American
So
companies.
why doesn't the Biden administration do this?
Because they're incompetent. They don't know how to talk. Look, they met in
what I came here
Alaska with the Chinese, and the Chinese lectured them about how badly we treat people. Right?
That I remember that.
Okay? I mean, think of it. You remember that? It was like an They didn't talk to me that way. They respected me. They respected our country. They don't respect our country. They don't respect Biden.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
bet
respect
that's
her. They're dreaming about her because she's incompetent. She's not a smart person. Look, she can't put 2 sentences together. She talks. I watched her 2 nights.
Gotta fix
I watched her
my
last night too. It
placement
was the
battery.
same thing. She's not a smart person. These guys are very smart, and they're very streetwise, and they're very tricky and evil and dangerous. And if she becomes the president of the United States, which I can't believe can happen, I don't think this country is going to make it. I don't think we'll ever be. I think just really bad things will happen to our country. And you know what? I look at the outside forces and I say they can all be handled because we have a pot of gold. But we're not going to have that pot of gold to play with anymore.
The headlines
it's a
tomorrow
great
are gonna be
negotiating
insane.
thing. I told you I knocked out this massive car company going to take all of our car business from Detroit. I knocked it out just by my rhetoric. Rhetorically, I said, they'll never sell a car in here. I'll put tariffs. I don't care if they're 2,000%. They're never going to build that plant. And
Is
knock
it possible to apply that same thing to the electronics that we use? One of the things that disturbs me greatly is that all of our phones are made overseas, and then some of
Well,
our phones are made in
And
places
the
like
chips.
Big problem.
yes, and the chips, and some of our phones are made in places like Foxconn, where they have nets around the building to keep people from
I
jumping
think
off
they
the
got rid
roof
of those
because they
years
have so many
ago,
suicides.
but,
Like,
yeah.
wouldn't it be better to have an American-made iPhone where people are paid good wages, they have health insurance, they're taken care of, they can live a good life, where you're not buying a piece of
our
electronics that's
medicines- our
cheaper
medicines
because
too,
someone
big
has to
rolling,
suffer
100%.
in a horrible way that's not even legal in the United States. It's not even legal to have them work that way in the United States, so they get these people to build them overseas.
You do it, but let me just say, that chip deal is so bad. We put up billions of dollars for rich companies to come in and borrow the money and build chip companies here, and they're not going to give us the good companies anyway. All you had to do is charge them tariffs. If you would have put a tariff on the chips coming in,
Trump
you would have
seems
been
to
able to,
understand
just like the auto companies, no
the idea
different.
of creating incentive
More
structures
sophisticated,
that,
but no different. You know, Taiwan,
create what
they stole our
you
chip
want.
business. Okay? They want us to protect, and they want protection. They don't pay us money for the protection, you know? The mob makes you pay money, right? But with these countries that we protect, I got hundreds of billions of dollars from NATO countries that were never paying us. And my biggest fan is Stoltenberg, who just left as the, director general, as the secretary general. Good guy. He said Bush came, he made a speech. Obama came, he made a speech. Trump came, he said, you guys aren't paying, you got to pay. And they said, will you protect us from Russia if we don't? I said, no, you got to pay. If you don't pay, billions of dollars came in to NATO. When I see us paying a lot of money to have people build chips, that's not the way. You didn't have to put up 10 cents. You could have done it with a series of tariffs. In other words, you tariff it so high that they will come and build their chip companies for nothing.
Right.
In other words,
Incentives.
Joe,
There's
you
other
put a big tariff on the
considerations,
chips coming
unfortunately.
in. I say, you don't have to pay the tariff.
Not
All
as
you have to
simple
do
as
is
he's
build
making
your
it out to
plant in
be,
the
but
United
it's
States.
a better,
We didn't have to give them the money to
already
build a
better
plant.
version.
Besides
than what
that,
they
they're
are
very
currently
rich
doing.
companies. These chip companies, they stole 95% of our business. It's in Taiwan right now. They do a great job, but that's only because we have stupid politicians. We lost the chip business, and now we think we're going to pay. You can't build it that way. You have to make them spend their money in the United States, and those plants would open up all over, and they'll fund them. We don't have to put up 10 cents. And I am in the process of making a huge speech in about a little while. And you and I, how long have we been talking?
A long time.
Let's go.
Probably like 3 hours.
I got to make a speech.
All right.
But we'll do it again. I want to do it again with you.
Okay.
You are something. They
Thank you
said.
very
I
much.
said, how long will this last? Anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4
How long we
hours.
do, Jamie? 3 hours.
Good. Well, we'll do it again. I thought it was great. I think it's.
I think it was great. It was a lot of
You
fun.
are a fascinating guy, and
Thank
you've
you.
done a great job.
Thank
I'm
you
a
very
big
much.
fan, and thank you very much. It's been an honor, and
It's been an honor to
I'm
have
going
you
to
on as
make
well.
a great speech, and I'm going to say, and if I'm a little off tonight, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to
Blame
say I
me.
spoke
Go
to this
ahead,
guy
blame
for
me.
3 hours. Anyway, it's a great honor to be
Thank you, sir.
with you. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank
All
you
right.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
Bye, everybody.
That's it for me. It is 2 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States, and I'm going to end this here. So check out the Patreon for $2 a month below, and I'll be back. Another live stream in a few days, maybe another video if I do that first, the one on Flint Dibble. And thanks for joining us. Yeah, that was a relatively boring conversation, but no worries. Good night, everybody.